Thank you everyone in the audience and on our YouTube live stream for being here tonight. I will call this meeting of Montgomery County School Board to order at 7 o'clock on November 2nd, 2020. Please stand for a pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item will be adopting our agenda. May I have a motion to adopt our agenda as presented?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. The next item will be Dr. Meyer's announcements. Dr. Meyer.
Thank you, Ms. Cron. Tonight we had the groundbreaking ceremony at Bellevue Elementary School, and that was just absolutely wonderful. Real excited about that. Also, want to let the school board know that we received the bench that is in memory of Dr. Sellers. We'll have a dedication ceremony prior to the school board meeting on December 1st at 6:30 to dedicate that bench. That bench is sitting at the entrance of the school board office. And so we will do that on December 1st at 6:30. And I believe Ms. Cron's gotten in touch with his wife.
Yes, I talked to Ms. Sellers, and hopefully she and their sons will be there.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. And so that's all of my announcements.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Next will be our public address portion of the meeting. At this time and at each our regularly scheduled meeting, the school board sets aside up to 30 minutes for residents, students, and employees to address the board about issues pertaining to public education in Montgomery County. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to speak. The screens throughout the room and on the laptop will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when 3 minutes has passed. As a reminder, the board does not respond to speakers during public address. I have 4 individuals sign up. I will call with the order to sign up, and please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes. First individual is Angela Williams.
Good evening. I'm Angela Williams. My address is 435 Talo Boulevard, Christiansburg. I'm a teacher at Christiansburg Elementary School, and as a representative of the English Language Arts 4th grade curriculum team, I've put in many hours developing and revising pacing guides and curriculum units. I do this work because I am passionate about English language arts. And when I look at everything that the new benchmark education program has to offer our students, I'm excited about using this program. It is research-based, rigorous, and relevant. Before Benchmark, I would often search other sources to supplement a lesson or find relevant reading passages. But unlike resources I find on my own, with Benchmark, I do not have to wonder if the resources are research-based and effective. Every single component is based on research by experts in their fields, and every text has been vetted to ensure its effectiveness. Another thing I appreciate about Benchmark is that all of our students are exposed to rigorous instruction. Through the mentor text, our struggling readers are explicitly taught vocabulary they would not likely encounter in their own level text. While in the same lesson, students who are ready for more challenging material are exposed to more advanced concepts, such as archaic language and analyzing imagery in poems. Finally, one of the aspects I'm enjoying the most so far this year is that every component is connected, which helps solidify students' understanding of the concepts. You want students college and career ready? We've learned about lepidopterist, entomologist, and mycologist. You want students to learn about diversity? We've learned about the red-tailed angels, the first all-African-American air squadron, and we have read poetry from the Inuit indigenous people. We have also learned about glacier calving, butterflies in Shenandoah National Park, and how humans and invasive species can wreak havoc on an ecosystem. Students are building background knowledge and connecting ideas to other areas of the curriculum. Some may feel that being asked to implement this program with fidelity can be stifling for teachers, but it is liberating for our students. This year especially, there are many factors that we cannot control. In a time when things can change from one day or week to the next, this program provides consistency across the county and ensures that our remote learners are getting the same rigorous instruction with the same materials that face-to-face students are getting. This program is as fascinating as it is effective, and I'm excited to see my students grow and learn as readers and writers this year. Thank you for your time.
Speak is Eileen Alwan.
Hello, my name is Eileen Alling. I live at 726 Park Street in Christiansburg, Virginia. I'm a third grade teacher at Christiansburg Elementary, and I'm here to thank the board for implementing the benchmark program and giving us the funds for this program. This is my 6th year teaching at Christiansburg Elementary, and I teach only reading. So I teach reading, writing, and spelling, and I have really enjoyed this program so far this year. And in a year where it can be very stressful, this program has made it significantly easier for me. It's been easy to plan. And I also teach I'm a co-taught classroom with a special education group in my classroom. And me and my special ed teachers, we can work together to make fun lessons for our kids. I've always had struggling readers, and this year is the first year as my struggling readers have books that look similar to their peers. They actually are engaged in the material that they're getting, and they're excited about reading these books every single day. And they also get little magazines that they get to take home after our unit. We just completed our very first unit about animals, and every single one of my kids in both of the sections that I teach loved the unit and was super excited about reading. And they were learning how to annotate, and they were everyone in there. And it was rigorous for all of my students. It also makes it easy because we've had kids that have gone in online for different reasons. And it's very easy to just implement it online for these kids and just virtually teach them at the same time in the classroom. So I'm very thankful to the board for allowing that program to come through because I've really enjoyed it. And I think my kids are enjoying it this year. And I am looking forward to the rest of the materials that we'll use through the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. The next individual will be Haley Strum. She's not here. And then we have Ginny Pennebaker. I know Ginny's here. Take your time, Ginny. Sorry, microphone is far away. Can we do that? I don't know. Oh, I didn't realize it's actually portable. I thought there's a cord.
I know there's people watching, so I don't know. They can't see that. Oh, they can't anyway. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Virginia Hannebecker, and I'm here tonight as a community member, a member of Virginia Organizing, and as a parent in the MCPS community. Over the last 2 years, parents, students, community members, educators in Virginia Organizing have worked with the Montgomery, Radford, Floyd, NAACP, and with MCPS officials to update the memoranda of understanding between MCPS schools and local law enforcement agencies regarding school resource officers in our schools. We are glad to see the adoption of new MOUs that redefine the role of school resource officers so that they do not participate in school discipline and rather ensure that trained school personnel work with students and families to attend to student needs. This is really important to improve equity in MCPS. As one of our Virginia organizing members has said, the inappropriate involvement of law enforcement in school discipline matters is one major cause of injustice. The MOUs are now posted on the MCPS website under Student Services and include an annual evaluation process that will be shared publicly. This is really important, and we want to thank you all for your commitment to work with grassroots community members to look at updating the school resource officer MOUs to disrupt the school to prison pipeline. Also, as a parent, and as a member of the strategic planning committee that I see is also on the agenda tonight, I've been really glad to see the focus on equity, not only as its own area, but throughout the plan. And I'm really glad to see MCPS direct resources and time and commitment to making changes across the schools. And last, I want to also add that I appreciate seeing that you're working directly with students, with community members in a variety of different ways to bring more directly affected voices in, especially those who may not have been included in conversations before. And if you look after this meeting in the minutes, I know other members of Virginia Organizing are also including written comments, including one of our leaders, Tamara Cherry Clark, also a parent here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ginny. Thank you coming forward, and thank you for participation in strategic plan. And thank you, Angela and Eileen, for here tonight with us and sharing your experience with Benchmark. That will conclude our public address portion of the meeting. Next agenda items will be payment of our bills. May I have a motion to pay our bills? Motion and second. Any questions or anything discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We pay our bills. Next item will be entering our business meeting, and it'll start with board member reports. Since we have quite a long agenda tonight, if no one has anything urgent to share, I will suggest we move forward to the next agenda item. I'm checking thumbs up unless anything urgent.
I just
you
had
want to
one
share.
thing.
Sure.
Just have one thing with the Educational Foundation.
Sure.
I just wanted to remind teachers that the grant process is still open. It's a rolling grant process. And we want to encourage you to think outside the box and get things that help your students in this challenging time of teaching and learning. I also wanted to mention that the Educational Foundation provided 50 MiFi devices to our students, and those have already been distributed. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. With that, I am moving forward to our COVID merit stipend for employees presentation.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Drake's going to bring that up.
Oh, okay.
We're just double check. So what you're seeing is that we're using Zoom to live stream this meeting to YouTube. So there are a few extra steps on this end with this computer so that people see you in the camera view, which is right there, but also the screen. This one.
There you go. I see, yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
All right, great job, Mr. Drake, getting through that technology. Mr. Kranz and I have been working over the past several weeks actually to see how we can look at a stipend for our employees. And so we want to update you on a couple of things. One is the CARES Act funding that we received, and then also how we can get to an employee stipend for this school year. First of all, just quickly, there are different types of COVID funding. One is through FEMA, which we have applied for a $228,000 reimbursement. You can see what that relates to. The specific CARES Act funding is the ESSER funding, which is about $1.5 million. The GEAR funding, which is around $337,000, and the CRF funding, which is $1.7 million. And all three of those pieces have different things that they can be spent on. They do have different provisions as to what you can't spend them on. And then they all have time periods in which they actually run out. So I wanted to give you that information. At any point, you feel free to ask any questions regarding this, and either myself or Mr. Kranz can answer those. Okay. All right. So, of course, this discussion is mostly about paying for the stipend, and what we're looking at is paying for it with all new funding. And what I mean by new funding is it's funding that is basically new, either from a carryover from last year through reimbursements that we originally paid for things last year that we got reimbursed for. So it created new money that is being carried forward. And that is, first of all, the CRF money at the bottom for us. We have about 1.3 million in reimbursements that are coming from supplies that we bought in last year. That is basically new money that can be added to the general fund. And then the top there, the FY20 carryover, we had about $2 million in carryover that you've already seen that we were just holding on to basically. And we hadn't committed that money. And then right there in the middle, the county CRF money, we're requesting $1 million from the county. And hopefully they'll be able to, and this is from their CARES Act money that was received to them by the federal government. And so with those three pieces of funding, we would be able to pay each employee a $2,000 stipend. That would cost about $3.3 million. Okay. And of course, there's a concern, if we spend this money, do we have enough money remaining to meet our needs? And my answer to that is yes. We still have over $1 million from carryover from last year. We still have money from ESSER, GEAR, and the CRF money, totaling about $2 million. We project that we'll only have to spend about $750,000 more for the remainder of the school year, and just in that we would have $1.25 million that will carry over into next school year. So that is a good sum to even carry to next school year. One thing that has been asked about is what happens to if we get all the money from the state that we were originally promised, which is through hold harmless, where they do not deduct money based on our reduction in ADM. And the thought is that will happen, but we will not know until about March. But that will be another $1.7 million that we will have that we will be able to use as well. So that's $3.7 million right there. So I guess I'm confident that, we will have enough money to pay these stipends to our employees. The stipend would go to full and part-time contracted employees who were hired in FY20 and still employed as of today, will receive the stipend. Full and part-time contracted employees who were hired in FY21 will receive $1,000. If an employee elected not to work during the COVID period, they're not eligible to receive the stipend from last year. But if they started working again this year, they would get the $1,000. Substitutes are not eligible. Employees hired after today will not be eligible. The hope is to pay the stipend to employees. If everything goes well and there's approval between here and the Board of Supervisors, we could pay this as early as November 20th. And just let me say, our employees, no matter what you do in our school division, have had to do something different, new, and extra this school year. It's been amazing what they've done. From March 13th until now, our bus drivers, and let me tell you, this is a question too. Why did you not have a difference in pay for bus drivers, aides, and cafeteria workers, which are part-time, versus other full-time workers? Because I say some of the folks that really picked it up were those bus drivers, aides, and cafeteria workers. I mean, they worked all summer. And they've just they delivered over 100,000 meals to our employees. And right now our bus drivers are working extra long hours, 4 days a week. And I really think that they deserve the same amount of money as our full-time employees in terms of the stipend. And then, of course, our teachers, they've had to relearn their craft. They've done just an amazing job. I mean, what they're doing right now is absolutely incredible. Every day I go in the classrooms and I see what's happening, and I'm just truly amazed. And then too, not to leave out our administration. Our administration has worked for 8 months, extra hours. I mean, really, they didn't have a summer this past summer to get things squared away, to make things move smoothly as can be during this time. So, this stipend would make up for the lost pay that the employees did not get because of the raise at the beginning of the year. And I really think that the money was set. Some of this money has been set aside by the federal government that they call it hazard pay. Not everyone qualifies for hazard pay under the federal government's definition. I think they should. I think everything that everyone's doing now and with our schools should be considered hazard pay, to be quite frank with you. So I would highly recommend this. And now it's up for discussion. And if you so feel like you can tonight, we would love to have a motion and a vote on this tonight.
Let me start with the motion and a second, and then we'll open for discussions. May I have a motion to approve the COVID merit stipend?
So moved.
Second.
I have motion and second. Now discussions, board members.
Dr. Meyer, my understanding was we were also going to include, or is this a separate conversation? Okay.
Pay raise?
Yeah.
Raise?
Yeah, I didn't know whether that was been taken out of the,
Yeah.
It's two separate. That's next.
okay,
year.
gotcha.
That's
Okay,
different. That's a different pot of money.
Okay. I didn't know if that would fall under this or not.
Yep.
I have the motion and second. Are you all ready for voting, or you have still the comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say some things
Sure.
about this. So, obviously, I don't know how the rest of you feel. I mean, I think most of us would love to see our staff get the stipend and then some, quite frankly. But I think for me as a board member, I look at this more as a budgetary issue more than anything. And we do have limited resources. And one of the questions I guess I was going to ask was, if we give the stipend, I know that there's still some carryover money that we have for, as a cushion, I guess, for unexpected expenses. But when I look at the results of the thought exchange and things like that, and when I hear from teachers personally and what's going on out there, and I'm not saying this to say that we shouldn't pay a stipend. I do think that we should pay a stipend, but I also am asking, is there more that we can do with the money to alleviate some of the hardships that teachers are experiencing. Because what I keep hearing is, I'm working nonstop. I don't have time for anything. Everything's changed. Those types of, and those are the things that we're saying. And this is, I think, paying a stipend, I think also, besides the hazard pay part of it, which I think is also valid, it's also it's a good encouragement, I think, for our staff and our teachers. But I guess have to ask the question: are there things that we can do? Hiring temporary help, because this is basically, it's one-time money, but it's one-time money that could stretch over more than just this year. It could stretch into the following year too. So, has the leadership had discussions about those types of things, whether there's, maybe programs that we can buy, hiring temporary help, technology, things like that, that could also, alleviate some of the stress and some of the work from our teachers.
I can speak to some things we've done in terms of course, custodians. We hired additional custodians, and this money's being used for that. We hired bus aides, and this money's being used for that. As for actual teachers, I really don't know what we could provide, because it's so different what they're having to do now. I don't know that if we hired an additional person to help them, how much that would actually be a benefit, if we were to actually pay for people.
I'm thinking along the lines of, if we had more, let's say, technology aids to help with the technology, because I think some teachers probably struggle with the technology. If we, I'm not saying we should do this. I'm asking, from a problem-solving point of view, we've got this problem that teachers are having a hard time. And certainly the hazard pay is takes care of kind of the attaboy, morale side of things. But what about solving those other problems?
I think they're two separate issues. I think that this stipend is in recognition of the above and beyond accomplishments of everyone on the staff in getting our students back into the school. I don't disagree that there are significant concerns out in the teaching community about their ability to sustain the level of work that they're doing right now. But I don't think, at least this is my own opinion as a former teacher, that just having somebody there to help me with my computer, that's not going to solve my problem. My problem is that I've got students on a screen and students in my classroom, and I'm juggling extra preps and I'm learning new technology, and sometimes students are there and sometimes they're not, and life's just constantly changing, and I'm overwhelmed because it's just a lot. And then I go home and I have to deal with my own family. Now, maybe we hire housekeepers and babysitters. That might be actually very appreciated. But I think that I think they're two separate issues. I would like to see the second issue addressed, because I have had a lot of concerns.
But I guess I'm saying the second issue requires money. And so with limited resources,
I don't know if the second issue requires money.
Well, it could. And
I don't think hiring extra people is going to solve a problem. That's my opinion. I think that in the future, I'd love to see us have full-time substitutes in schools. That would be a great idea, to have people who are trained, know the school, know the kids. They link them right into a spot when somebody's out. Those are all great ideas. I don't think that would work right now in COVID. But I do think things like that could be done, but I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I guess that's a question you could ask teachers.
Yeah, and I
would ask the teachers, is there a better, should we spend the money on resources to help you? Or would you like to see a stipend?
And I agree with Ms. Cass. We are also doing a lot of, extras in technology. Mr. Wickham is, doing, buying webcams for teachers who are requesting it. We've gotten the larger screens to help, because I know that the small screens can be quite challenging when you're trying to navigate students remote versus in person. The one thing I think might help a little bit, at least it would for me to avoid some confusion, is if we could settle down which kids are going to stay remote and which kids are going to come in person, because that personally would drive me nuts, not knowing who I have this week and who I don't.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard that concern.
Yeah, that's
I
been a
would,
big
I would like
concern,
to see,
big
and I
concern.
can't imagine it wouldn't also be extremely beneficial to the child. I mean, I personally just am surprised that they'd be flip-flopping as much as they are.
And
Um,
and I'll tell you this, we've already talked about it as a leadership team. We've heard that, and we'll be bringing a recommendation to you on December 1st about that specific thing.
Okay.
To basically, we're going to have folks choose at some point, unless it's COVID related.
Right.
On December 1st, I'm going to be bringing a recommendation to you that, you know, parents and kids have to choose one or the other, can't go back and forth. You know, we've had situations where, it can be done where a kid goes on vacation for a couple of weeks and they can still get remote learning, but it's not what is best for teachers to have to deal with that situation.
Exactly.
And so, but I'm going to ask you at the December meeting for us to look at, you know, unless it's COVID related, you sort of have to pick one and be there. You know, that's
And definitely we shouldn't take the advantage of the, not fun situation. I mean, remote option is due to COVID, but we don't want to take advantage of it when we do other things.
And I don't, I don't want to hear that teachers are struggling with technology, because we have amazing ITRTs, and granted, some of them, have to rotate between 3 schools, but that team we have is absolutely amazing. So please, teachers, reach out to your ITRT and get the help you need. Don't stand there and try to struggle with it. It's not worth it. We have the expertise to help you.
I agree, but if you got everybody reaching out for the same few that we have, well, what happened here? That's where I agree with you, Mark, because I do think it's not always about either or. It can be both. And you don't know how much it helps you to have an extra helping hand until you have it. And then you go, oh my gosh, how'd I do it without it? I mean, I learned that when my daughter got old enough and could do my deposits and order my stuff and wash the towels and take appointments and answer the phone. And I realized, oh my gosh, what did I do without her? And that's just one example. You don't know till you've got it. Mm-hmm. And it makes a huge difference when somebody can take your role and prepare something for you to just have, and it's right here at your fingertips. It makes a huge difference. I mean, until you have it, you don't know what you got. But I'm fine with it, but I do agree with Mr. Tabaka. I do think sometimes there's ways that we can help without just giving money. And of course that's, oh yeah, I want that stipend, and that sounds great. Everybody wants extra money, but sometimes we don't think about what the little bit of help. If that were the case, no one would use college students for internships. No one would ever use anything like that if that type of thing doesn't make a huge difference. It does.
Well, and the other thing, I don't know if it's possible to look at as far as your administrative team, but, are there any really unnecessary things that teachers are having to do that's adding more to their load? Maybe there's not, but I don't know. It's just something, to think about.
I mean, for me, it was it was honestly just a question of, we have money and we can help. The goal obviously with this chunk of money is to help our staff and to compensate them for their hazard work appropriately. And, so I'm okay with both. I mean, when I first started looking at this, I had a meeting with Tommy last week, because I really wanted to understand the numbers on this and where the money was coming from. And at first I was a little bit uncomfortable with here. I think the problem for us as a school system is that I think COVID is impacting us in a much greater way than perhaps other organizations in the county. And so I think, like
Definitely.
Dr. Meyer says, it's completely, in some cases, changing the way that we deliver the thing that we deliver, which is instruction. And a lot of that stuff requires money. I mean, the transportation for the buses and, even what we're doing for, our air quality in our buildings. I know some of the places we're doing filtration, but other places we're changing out the air more frequently. When it's 20 degrees outside or 15 degrees outside and we're doing that, we're going to find our heating bills are going to go up. And so, I mean, all that stuff adds up, right? But we're also, we're barely 1/4 in. And for me, it's an issue of being risk averse I'd like to have, we're spending about $1 million currently. Our burn rate is basically $1 million a semester extra because of the pandemic. And that doesn't even take into account, if we decide in the future that we have to do teaching in a different model that might increase our costs or something. I don't know. But at the same time, there's also the reality that we are, of where we are and how we got here, which is that, the county did vote to give, their people a $2,000 stipend. And so,
Yes.
and
Well, the
retroactive
increase is
raise.
retroactive.
Yeah. And so I think that, for me, it's a balancing act, and looking at the numbers in the end, I think that if the county gives us at least $1 million in their CARES Act funding, and I really think it should have been 1.8. But if they give us at least one, I think that we basically end up with about 2 million, correct me if I'm wrong, Tommy and Mark, but I think we end up with about 2 million in carryover, and that's before the ADM hold harmless, which we can't 100% count on, but that gives us extra cushion, and it's expected, I think, to pass. So with all of that in mind, I think I still feel that it sounds like a lot of money, but again, I think because we need more, I think I can support the $2,000 stipend, but then this will come up again when we start talking about the raise. Anyway,
One thing to recognize is that some of the money, especially the county's money, if they allot us the $1 million, has to be spent by when?
Yeah,
30th.
end of year. Yeah.
And so it's not something we can go back and ask them for a second semester
Yeah.
because they have to spend it by then. So that sort of makes it a little bit tricky too. And so,
I can't tell you how happy I was to hear that this is something that we may be possible for us to do, because it is so needed. There are so many people, even at my job, for a short period of time, there was a little extra money because we were essential workers and we were coming in under conditions that maybe weren't so safe. And in our school system with our teachers and the rest of our staff, magnify that tenfold. So where we're saying all the extra stuff they had to learn and everything that they're doing to keep things going, the fact that they are essential workers in the middle of a pandemic and they continue to work, continue to adapt, is just remarkable. So I believe there are two different conversations.
Yeah.
One, we talk to our teachers to find out what we may be able to do to help support them, and then we pay them and the rest of our staff. So as far as board, because it's going to be a long night, I would suggest that we move forward with talking to our teachers about what we do to support them instead of thinking what we think we know. And pay them. And then we'll talk about some other stuff further down.
I agree.
Yep, I agree. Two separate
Anything-
issues.
Oh, sorry. Anything else, Ms. Parton, we want to add anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So we have the motion and.
Ms. Karan, sorry, I just
sorry.
want to fit this in real quick,
Sure.
and I'm going to get dagger eyes probably on this, but I do want to say one other thing about stipends, and that's that, some of the carryover that we got from last year was from monies that we didn't end up paying or that we ended up using for COVID related expenses, and then now has been reimbursed to us. And one of the things I would love to see, and I don't mean to belabor it, but one of the things I'd love to see is if we consider making whole the stipends for spring head coaches who didn't get paid last year. And I know people are going to say, well, you can't go back and whatnot, but what we're about to vote on right now is in some sense going back, because we're paying two different amounts depending on, people who worked after, March and whatnot. But anyway.
Have the motion and the second for the merit stipend for employees. Anything else? Can we have a roll call?
That'd be great. Great. Thank you, Ms. Karan. I'm having a tough time with voices this evening. I think
I think it's easier.
your different location and my different location. And so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Mr. Trebaka,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Cass,
Yes.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Karan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I think it's going to be much appreciated, I believe,
Yes.
wholeheartedly.
All right, so the next piece is the supplemental appropriation request to the Board of Supervisors for the $3.384 $516 supplement. As discussed before, this letter asks for the funds to pay for the COVID merit stipend. We're asking you to authorize this letter to be sent to the county administrator.
May I have a motion to authorize the superintendent send a letter to Board of Supervisors requesting a supplemental appropriation in the amount of 3.3 million plus?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any other discussion on the amount or on the letter? You prefer roll call?
If that's
Continue?
okay.
Sure.
It
It's
helps
okay
me.
with me.
Thank you.
That's easier.
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Mr. Trebaka,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Cass,
Yes.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Karan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next is the employee pay raise. I recommend that we provide an average of 3% pay increase for all employees to be paid with the release of deferred funds from the 2021 operating budget. When you agreed to defer the funds in this year's budget, you stated that employee compensation will be a top priority when those funds are reinstated. The average 3% pay increase will be for all contracted employees and will be effective in the last half of the 2021 school year. The pay increase will be paid during the last 6 pay periods for the 2021 school year. I do not recommend retroactive pay due to the loss of our ADM. This is pending approval of the Board of Supervisors to release the deferred funds, hopefully on November 9th. We have provided a 10-month teacher pay plan as an attachment. This is the same 10-month teacher pay scale that we had approved in the budget last year for this year. So we would just be moving straight to that pay scale, basically. The school board will be provided a full updated pay plan to approve at the December 1st meeting. And this is an informational item tonight that we will not actually move on until December 1st. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, does anyone have any questions? Any discussions at this time?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if I understand this correctly. The cost, I gotten some numbers from you guys earlier. The cost of the raise is about $3.5 million a year. Is that correct?
3.4 million.
Okay, and the deferred appropriations that we're getting from the county, and which I kind of busted on them about the stipend, but I'm going to thank them for indicating anyway they're providing this money. That's 1.55 million. Is that correct?
Well, the county, what they did is they froze our entire budget. So they froze $6.925 million of revenues, of which 1.55 was the county. The remaining 5.3 plus million dollars came from the state.
I'm sorry, how much came from the state?
5.3 million. So all the new revenue that was projected in last year's budget, they froze.
Yes.
In anticipation of potential problems with COVID.
Okay. But I guess what I'm getting at here, and maybe this is a question and maybe this is a statement, but my understanding is it costs $3.5 million to give a 3% raise. We're getting the part that's coming from the county is 1.55 million. The part that was supposed to come from the state for SOQ positions was roughly 1.95 million.
Roughly.
Right now, we're not getting that. The state's not giving us that money, I'm assuming, or are they giving us part of that money?
Off of the preliminary information that we're getting, we haven't seen the final calc tools, but it's nearly equal to what we anticipated in the budget.
So that's new money that's coming from the state that we can count on for next year and subsequent years?
Now how much you can count for in FY22, I don't know. I mean, FY21, yes. I mean, they've got, for example, their sales taxes, when the General Assembly, which the governor will be signing the budget, on Friday of this week, they put $95 million in so that the sales tax going to school systems is whole. So what they budgeted at the beginning of the year is what we actually will receive during this year. So
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if that included this raise. Here's what I don't want to, end up in a situation where we've given a raise that we can pay for this year, but then we're starting next year's budget or a subsequent year's budget in the hole, because that's not recurring money that we're guaranteed, I don't say guaranteed might be a strong word, but that's not recurring money, right?
The only reason it wouldn't be guaranteed is if our ADM did not increase back to where it was. And so that's one thing that we're relying on. We're down 300, and there's no doubt it's because of the pandemic. Okay, that minus 300 is about 1.7 million that we're going to get this year, but we wouldn't get next year possibly if the state didn't continue to fund us under hold harmless. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And that's my concern. My concern is that, and we don't have to figure this out now. I know we got a lot of stuff to go through, but that's one thing I'm concerned about. And I do wonder if it makes more sense to give a raise that is in the amount of, the full funding going forward. And then any, extra funding we may have for this year, we could, do a one-time bonus stipend, something like that. So that's my thinking on that. It may be good to get more information on that.
I don't think you have to worry about it for next year. I think you're looking down the road to about 23 when it would be an issue, because we're going to get the full amount this year. Say the 3% raise costs the entire 3.5 million. All right, they're going to hold us harmless, meaning they're going to give us a 3.5 million. It's only going to cost us 1.7 to give the raise for the last 6 months, which means at the carryover at the end of this year, we should still have that 1.7 that we can move into next year if our ADM did not increase.
I understand, but that sounds to me like we're taking one-time money and rolling it over to pay for a recurring expense, and basically at some point it's going to run out, and you're going to need an increase in the amount of money you're getting from the states.
Here's what we don't think is going to happen. We don't think our ADM is going to continue to be this low. Our ADM is down mostly in K1 and 2, and what we believe are parents have kept their kids home during this pandemic, and I truly believe that between the growth, once this goes away, that the community is already experiencing and was experiencing before this, I think we'll be at the 9,800 and probably more within a year and a half.
Yeah. But wouldn't we need to hire more teachers? I mean, the ADM is basically it's what the state pays us to educate a certain number of kids. The more kids we have, the more resources we need to spend.
Well, we have the resources that are necessary right now for 9,800, and we have 9,500.
All right.
I mean, that's who we have. We expect 98.
I mean, that's my concern. We can take it offline. I guess I can better understand it then. Thanks.
Anything else, Mr. Krantz?
Yes, sir.
Would that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, sir. You are.
Any other questions, comments at this time? And
Okay, so I am really not happy that we are not going to be paying our teachers that raise from July, starting in July, being retroactive. So if we get the ADM 1.7, can we not go back and make it retroactive from July?
Yeah, what you could do is this. We won't know if we're getting the hold harmless until about March, right?
Correct.
Okay. So when we know that they voted on home harmless, that means we'll have an additional 1.7. And of course, that would be towards the end of the school year. And then you all can make a decision at that point to go back and take that 1.7 and pay it. At this point, I wouldn't recommend making that move right now because we don't know what the government's going to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the school year, we're going to have a carryover of at least the 1.7. You can take that money and go back and repay it and pay it back in terms of a stipend again. Or we could carry it over to next year. It's just too far off to know what I would recommend at this point. Hopefully, I hope we see our ADM go up as the year goes on. Yeah, I understand.
And that thought just went away. It'll come back. Somebody else say something.
Any other comments and questions right now? And this week,
I think it's important to not overcount, that we don't overcount that same 1.7 million, right?
Yeah.
That it's kind of our,
think so many
it's our
different
cushion
things.
here and it's going to be our cushion there. But I also agree that if we get to a certain point where we see, okay, we didn't need it here, we didn't need it here, we didn't need it here, then that's fine.
Well, the likelihood is if you go back every year, we have other carryover money,
Yeah.
that we will know about.
But we're kind of starting to commit some of that towards COVID stuff.
I'm just
right?
talking just our regular
Yeah.
carryover
Yeah.
that we usually have that we don't spend for whatever reason, and their savings, and we're usually at about how much on that we're not even talking about.
Generally about $1.5 million.
So that's a conversation to have later on at the end of the year if
Yeah.
that's the case.
mean,
You
things
all can
are
choose
all
what to do
moving.
with that carryover money.
Okay, so I know that, we're in a different time here. Everything is, we don't know when it happens, if it should, we think it will. But here's what, again, bothers me about the conversation, and that is us not giving that 3% raise total that's gonna roll over in our employees' bottom line. Because we can keep throwing bonuses at them, but their base pay will still not increase as their years of service go on, because basically there was only half a raise. So
You're right. You could go back, and I misspoke. I said you could go and then pay them another stipend.
Right.
You could go and pay them back pay where it
Back
actually
to-
counts towards
yeah.
your VRS. You could do that.
I think in March,
That
we
would be
should
the
look
most
into,
beneficial.
look into that.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
Any other questions? And this is going to come back in December, and we may have more discussion time then. So I'm moving forward to the appropriation letters.
Okay, so I just have
Sorry,
one
go ahead.
more. So are there more funds that we can request from the supervisors to be able to do this now and make it retroactive? Are there more funds that they may have?
We're not sure about that, and I don't know if they're sure about it.
I can't
I think
represent their position.
they're having a meeting right now talking about us
Yeah.
and how much money they have. They end up, I think they ended up getting, correct me if I'm wrong, Tommy, we got about 3 million in CARES funding. I think they got 17 million.
17.2 to be precise, and they divided up between themselves and 2 towns and task force.
So that's where they gave their money first, with the 2 towns and the task force.
And we
Okay.
never went in the table
So-
for that,
Yeah, they're
so
about
for
out.
that
I have
discussion.
a real problem
So do
with
I.
us being last on the
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
We're the ugly stepchild all the
We-
time.
Without the school system that has been created in Montgomery County, they would not be able to draw in businesses. They would not be able to hire people to come into this county, to be able to create businesses, and to just be good people that live here.
Mhm.
So we get stuck at the bottom with some of everybody's working hard during this situation. But when your main goal, when people look at Montgomery County, is the school system
Yep.
and how the children are being educated and what they're being educated for, why are we at the bottom? We should be at the top. The conversation should have happened with Montgomery County to say, okay,
Yep.
tell us what you need, what you're looking at, what's going on. And instead, I'm thankful for the supervisors for the relationship we've built and how they've supported us. But this is a different time, and we need to make sure that our teachers and other employees are not being burned out and decide to go into some other field. And then we're having to recruit more people to come into the district and keep starting things over again. And that's just not the way we should be building Montgomery County, by tossing the schools whatever pennies that are left over. Pennies are good, but I prefer
Absolutely.
Especially Penny Franklin's.
big dollars. Okay.
Hey, I wrote a letter to them right before the meeting today, and I basically said those same things because, I'm kind of reading off my letter here, but I said these have been difficult times for many people and educators, and everybody's been asked to go above and beyond. And so often people have said the teachers and staff are frontline workers, they're essential workers. And yet they're here, they're saying, oh, the sheriff's deputies and every person in the county is going to get all this. And here we have people that are considered frontline workers, and we're fighting to get that. And only one person on the board of supervisors brought forward the concept of, hey, shouldn't we be involving MCPS in this? And of course it was a former teacher. And the rest of them just were like, yay, and patting themselves on the back. They're giving increases, which is really great. I'm glad they did that. Good for people in the county. But aren't teachers county employees to some degree? I mean, aren't we? I found that when I heard about it the next day, I thought we were county employees. So how can you exclude a good portion? And guess what? The only way your county employees can go back to work is because we're teaching their children.
Yeah.
And so now they can work because we're actually teaching. So I just find it just unbelievable that they didn't even consider that they would have to provide funds to us.
And unfortunate part is throughout July and August and September, each county school liaison meeting around the table with them, chair, vice chair, and chair, vice chair situation, and Dr. Meyer and Mr. Meadows, we said, whenever you're going to do this, let's talk together so that we can do the same thing, because we are together in this.
Yeah, I mean,
As if we have not said that.
They didn't reach out at all.
I watched the whole thing for hours.
I know it was.
So it was like, I couldn't believe they did it.
They had to rush to the decision, and they didn't even reach out to the school board. And I found that kind of appalling.
Well, and I think that I agree with you, Ms. Cass. And the other piece to that is that, like Dr. Meyer said, they offered it to the two towns first. They have revenue.
Yes, exactly. They have the
Granted,
ability to raise revenue. Yep.
Granted, their revenue was probably down considerably, but whose wasn't? And the fact that they reached out to them before, they never even reached out to us, essentially.
No.
We found out about it after the Board of Supervisors meeting.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a travesty to the students who will be citizens of this county.
That sure isn't good fiscal responsibility. I think the community members should be outraged by how the supervisors just threw money out there. And I'm not saying that county employees don't deserve it. That's not my point. It's that a whole lot of thought was not put into that.
Say Tommy did a good job last week. If y'all saw.
Yeah, how many times he asked for them to wait?
How many asked for them to
as
wait?
well. Mr. Kranz and Miss Biggs, work really hard to.
In fact, Tommy's getting ready to go over there right now because they're meeting about this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let him
And they
go
didn't
see
have
who-
it on the agenda. They didn't need to vote. So,
I do wonder what I think we need to probably individually also take steps moving forward to strengthen maybe our individual relationships with our.
We thought we had.
Well, I know. I'm
I
just,
talked to mine, but mine's the one that was.
yeah, but I think, because like Ms. Franklin said, they have supported us in a lot of ways, but this definitely feels, not right in this case. And we need to work. And one of the things we haven't had a meeting with them in a long time too. And I'm wondering if
maybe
those
it's
need to
time.
become regular again.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so, yeah, Mr. Krantz is going to head over there right
Sure.
now, and he's going to pass on all y'all's messages.
Thank
okay?
you, Mr. Grant.
Great.
Just running over.
Anyway, yeah, we need to vote on the supplemental appropriation request is asking the board supervisor to release the deferred budget funds totaling $6.925 million. The release of these deferred funds provide the funds to implement the employee pay raise. We're asking you to authorize this letter to be sent to the county administrator. So basically, we're sending a letter to them to release that money. So then on December 1st, you can enact the actual raise.
May I have a motion to authorize the superintendent to send a letter to the Board of Supervisors requesting the supplemental appropriation in the amount of 6.925 million plus?
I motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussions regarding the letter? If not, we're ready for your roll call.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
I'm kind of torn with this because I believe there should have been funds coming to us above this to be able to pay our employees. I'm going to vote yes, but I'm not happy.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
I'll say yes, and I'm not happy either.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next, we're still finalizing this year's budget while having to plan for the 21-22 budget. That's coming up really soon. The proposed budget planning calendar is in board
Never
docs.
ending.
Approval of this calendar would add 2 tentative board workshops to the meeting calendar, as well as a potential joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors on March 16th. We're asking you to adopt the planning calendar tonight.
May I have a motion to adopt the calendar?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any questions regarding the calendar? I think at this time, the county still didn't put their calendar, so we may have to match
Yeah,
and
it's,
tweak at the same,
We
yeah,
may
yeah,
have
at
to
some point,
adjust
this
it.
might need to be
All right.
changed.
Right.
yeah.
Mhm.
Ready to have a roll call.
Sure. Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, yeah, the pay stipend, that was exciting, but
But this is exciting.
this
too.
is very exciting.
know that.
I am very excited tonight to give the board an update on our strategic plan. This is going to be a 6-year plan. This is where we go for the next 6 years. This plan reflects more than 2,000 hours and the work of 151 team members. And these folks, these were teachers, administrators, students, community members. I mean, so school board members, so many folks worked on this plan that will be what we go by and make decisions by for the next 6 years. So we'll start off by Ms. Whitaker and Dr. Graham are here to lead off this presentation. And I think you'll be impressed with what we've come up with as what we're going to have to lead us. Dr. Graham?
Welcome back.
Yes.
Sorry. Good evening, board members and Dr. Meyer. Thank you for having us tonight. We're very excited to share the strategic plan with you and very excited about what we have coming up.
Put the
Just
microphone a little
remind you
closer.
that in June of 2019, Montgomery County Public Schools,
A little closer. Yeah, it's hard to hear.
hear me now,
Didn't work. No.
now?
Yeah.
All right. So I will just start all over. Good evening, and thank you for having us tonight. We are very excited to share the strategic plan with you. Just to give you a little background, in June of 2019, Montgomery County Public Schools committed to the ambitious project of creating a long-range strategic plan for the school division. And to do this, we worked under the guidance of the Cambridge Strategic Planning Services team. We began with a community summit, which was held to gather input from the community, from staff, from students, from parents, from business leaders. We wanted to encompass all stakeholders. Then after the community summit, a strategic planning team was developed. This team consisted also of a broad cross-section of our community. That team met for 3 days in October of 2019, and they created a draft plan, which included 5 objectives, a mission, beliefs, and parameters and strategies. Following that, action teams were developed. These were also composed of a cross-section of the community, and they were charged with conducting research and developing plans to accomplish the mission, the objectives, and the strategies. Each of those 5 teams met from November all the way through March, and then they presented their work to the original strategic planning team on October 16th, almost a year later from when we began. The strategic planning team approved the plan, and that's why it is being presented to you tonight. And as you can see, and as Dr. Meyer just mentioned, the teams took their work very, very seriously. In total, the teams were composed of 151 members. Over 53 group meetings were held, and over 2,000 hours of work went into the plan development. So tonight, each team will provide you with a brief overview of their work. We will begin with the Deputy Superintendent, Annie Whitaker, who was on the strategic planning team, and will see the work of that team. Ms. Whitaker.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. I'm going to be able to share our mission, our beliefs, and then lead you into the presentations from our different strategic planning teams. We are not going to tonight, but I am going to read to you because they really are the foundation of everything we're going to see in the plan. And I think that they're very meaningful. So number 1, belief. All students can learn in order to pursue their dreams. 2, schools are safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity. 3, every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected. Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community member. The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths. All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources. Every child deserves an advocate. Honoring the voices of students and other stakeholders strengthens the school community. Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth. Learning and teaching are collective efforts that begin at birth and involve the entire community. Relationship building and high expectations are foundational to student success. Our mission statement speaks to who we are as Montgomery County. MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity, and we are committed to equity and inclusion. MCPS empowers learners to realize success in an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences. We had objectives in 5 of the areas, and so those are our different strategic planning groups who are going to present to you next. They'll share with you about the work that they've put together, which encompasses these objective statements for each of those areas. Instruction, learning environments, poverty, equity, and mental health. And each of those groups will now tell you a little bit more about the action plans that they have developed. Instruction Action Team, I'd like to call y'all down. These phenomenal ladies are going to present to you today, and we're so thankful to have a teacher and parent representing the Instruction Action Team.
say, we're really excited. We worked really hard and we just want you to feel the excitement that we feel. The instruction action team actually had 29 members, and that was parents, administrators, teachers. Whew, I am excited. Instructional assistants, community members, and students. And we actually self-identified into 2 groups because our task was so large. So we had an instruction team and a recruitment and retention team. And though we acted as 2 sort of separate groups in the beginning, we made sure to come together in the end to present as a whole. So to collaborate, we held group discussions and we used process. Our research topics were split among teammates, and you can see here all of the research topics that we covered. And we totaled 111 hours just of research. And total, we had 575 combined hours for our team. So by our 3rd meeting, we had shared what we had researched and we began to write our result statements. So now I turn to Kaja, who is going to talk about the instruction part of our action plan.
Hello. So for our instruction action team, when developing our action plan and next steps, we did focus on 3 areas. Those were professional development, lesson planning, and engagement. So first, I'm going to be talking about the professional development. We must improve our professional development program. Supporting our teachers and giving them the professional skills and tools they need is imperative. Our current system lacks a management for PD. We want to make a new role called the Administrator of Professional Development. This role will be vital to improve our professional development opportunities. First, this person will need to analyze our current practices and evaluate what PDs have been effective. Next, as Administrator of Professional Development will use these evaluations to develop a plan aligned with the individual and division needs with a focus on the listed topics, but I think that the listed topics did not make it over from the other presentation. Finally, the Administrator of Professional Development will continue to implement, monitor, and revise those professional development opportunities. Sorry, that list wasn't included. I didn't notice that when I looked over the slide. Next, we focus on lesson planning. So we broke this into 3 discussion points. Teachers use the 4 tools for success, and these are lesson components that come from the VDOE lesson review document. These are already being implemented across the county. So administrators will use these VDOE documents to aid in the monitoring of teachers to give them valuable feedback. Additionally, teachers must make a plan for students to have multiple response options. To aid in this, we want to create an open source idea bank for teachers to access when planning their lessons. Many materials and resources are needed to deliver instruction, and oftentimes teachers are purchasing these materials with their own funds. To reduce this burden for teachers and to enhance our students' educational experience, we must establish methods for schools and other departments to compile and share physical and digital resources. We did begin a different method for supplying schools with materials they need this year, and we would like to see this strategy to continue to grow. Professional development on data analysis and data sharing will also help our teachers better use the assessments that we have. And finally, the feedback and assessment. For our students to learn and grow, we must provide timely and specific feedback on assignments. This will allow students and stakeholders to gain clarification, make appropriate changes on assignments, and expand their scope of understanding. We must guide instructional teams in creating assessments that align with the content and the standards, while providing the appropriate rigor and the authentic learning experience. And that my final slide brings me to the engagement piece. We also had 3 points, 3 topics on this slide: engaging classrooms, homework and grading policy, and the wellness and balance. In our plan, we will build classrooms and lessons with a safe learning environment where it is okay to make mistakes, where movement and technology are incorporated, and where lessons are relevant and engaging to our learners. Our current homework and grading practices have students stressed and overassigned work. We want to design and implement a homework policy that reflects the care that we have for our students. Grades should measure the understanding of a content. We must have options to address incomplete assignments in an equitable and a fair way. We want to encourage students to complete assignments because they're important, because they are necessary to show their learning. Finally, we must consider the wellness and balance of our students and our staff. By having a focus on growth mindset strategies, we can support our students, our faculty, and our staff in and out of the classroom, not just to teach the growth mindset idea, but to truly embody the spirit to truly embody the spirit of a growth mindset throughout the school. This will change the culture of education. With that more positive culture, we must help our students see the value in education. Our assignments must be meaningful and purposeful lessons that are relevant to their lives. With a focus on professional development, lesson planning, and engagement, we will be able to improve the culture of instruction in our schools. But we have one other piece to focus on, and Christina is going to help us with the final piece that we need to create for the county.
Thank you, Kaja. And so that brings us to recruitment and retention. And so there are three specific result statements within recruitment and retention. So the first is support. And when we talk about support, we're talking about all MCPS employees. So how are we already supporting them? And how must we do better in order to attract potential employees? So we will use research and data collection to develop a program that guides, encourages, and supports the employees during their first years at MCPS. For recruitment, we need to make sure that we're maximizing our potential applicant pool. So this means identifying students and standout student teachers that we interact with already for potential teaching and classified positions. Next, we need to make sure that we're using our resources well. So like our relationships with local universities and through programs like Teachers for Tomorrow's, ACES, and AMPS. AMPS is the alternative model for professional studies. And finally, the percent of minority students entering education programs in universities and colleges is declining even more than the already declining numbers of students entering education programs. So we are invested in recruiting minority candidates, but this means, therefore, that we need to better use the existing relationships that we have with like HBCUs, and we need to find new pools of potential candidates and build those new relationships. And the last one is retention. So if we build it, they will come, but how do we keep the stands from being empty? How do we, after we have recruited these great employees, how do we retain them? Well, this starts by first asking why employees continue already to work for us, and to use that data and other research to develop and implement an employee retention plan. And next, we have to make sure that we're sharing our compensation plan with other divisions and employees to show what our commitment is to competitive salaries. And additionally, we need to develop a detailed onboarding process. This is ensuring that employees have everything that they need for day one on the job, because that is how you show an employee that they are valued and seen. And lastly, we must ensure that all students at MCPS see themselves in the employees, in their faces. And so when we are perhaps able to hire, in particular, maybe a minority teacher, we need to make sure that we have a program already in place to retain that teacher so that we can keep this diverse population that we are growing. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mark Husband. I'm the Director of Career and Technical Education and Virtual Learning. I was one of the co-chairs of the Learning Environment Committee. My other co-chair, Tommy Krantz, as you know, had to step away for the evening, so I'm flying solo on presenting the learning environment information. We had a very diverse team, as all of our groups did. That's outlined here. I want to take a moment to actually point out the pictures. One of the better activities that we organized for our teams was actually a bus tour. Everybody in our environment, in our learning environment team, got to go out on a very cold December night, if I remember correctly. And we went to Christiansburg Elementary School and Falling Branch Elementary School. And the purpose of that was simply to expose people to the different types of learning environments when you look at a school that has not been renovated and a school that has been renovated. And if we think about those of us in the room, we're lucky that we get to go into a number of different schools on a regular basis, and we get to see how different schools affect students and teachers. But most people in our community and most people on our team that were not affiliated directly with schools, when they think of schools, they think of the school they attended. And sometimes that's 20, 30 years ago, or they think of the school that their child attended. But it's generally a narrow concept of what a school can look like. So this was really an eye-opening experience for a lot of our community members to see that Falling Branch has a very different feel to it. It's not a completely new building. It was renovated, just like we're talking about with the other Christiansburg areas, but it really kind of set the tone for the rest of our presentations and discussions to just understand what things like added light and added space and modern conveniences and how that can really affect the students' daily educational opportunities. We had 3 action plans, and I'm going to read through each of them as they each have their own dedicated slide. The first one, of course, we want to continuously strengthen the safety and security of all MCPS facilities. We were talking a lot about renovations and additions and seeking multiple forms of suggestions and priorities. Development of a master facilities plan, which you all have access to. Assess school traffic flow, which I know that you all have talked a lot about in the Christiansburg Strand. Incorporating modern educational spaces, technology, and furnishings. Another thing that came through our tour was really just how furniture can make a huge difference in color and functionality of furniture and spaces. And explicitly supporting the development and expansion of pre-K. And I do want to point out just one last time that I think we wrote that in February. And so a lot has changed with pre-K and childcare in our community and nationwide since we wrote that in February. And I'm really I'm proud that we put the explicitly support part. We wanted to be very strong about how important we think pre-K is moving forward. Our second plan is continuously enhancing the quality of all MCPS learning environments, updating best practices. Appropriate community experts will be engaged in evaluating and planning. We really want to make sure that it's not just the school system that's planning. We want to make sure that the community has a voice. Develop and update annually as part of the facilities master's plan, and create a measurement tool to assess schools. And when we look at schools and we say one school needs to be renovated versus another school that needs to be renovated, what is our measurement tool? How are we assessing that? Go back to just like our teachers in our classrooms, what do we need to focus on? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? And schools will be designed to ensure appropriate areas are easily accessed by the community and outside organizations. And then that third bullet point I want to highlight, effectively communicate to all stakeholders. As we know, a number of things throughout our society and with our schools can be cyclical. And the community felt like, rightfully so, we went to a point where safety, and it always will be, was the very number one priority. But we also felt like the feeling of the community was that safety was such a high priority that people didn't always feel welcome in our buildings. So we need to make sure that we have a positive tone. We're communicating our buildings that these are meant to be the hubs for our communities. We want outside groups to come in and use our buildings so that everyone has a stake in our buildings and in our schools. Before I wrap up, I do want to point out what you didn't hear in here is that Christiansburg High School has to be next, or we need to do X, Y, and Z in order to make sure that our students have the best facilities. We did not want to go into this over 6 years, because who knows what's going to happen over 6 years, with a definitive plan. This was really meant to be more of a look at how do we process information? How do we include all of our stakeholders? And how do we come up with a plan? And what should we make sure that we are paying attention to when we do plan for further facility renovations or even new buildings over the next 6 years? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Asman. Is next. I was just going to say that.
Good evening, board. My name is Heather Turman. I'm the McKinney-Vento and Foster Care Liaison for Montgomery County Public Schools. The Strategic Planning Committee chose to pull out poverty as its own action area because they understood the challenges that bear down on our economically marginalized students and their families, and how these challenges greatly impact the achievement in and out of the classroom. So the planning team proposed 3 actions for our poverty team to address. We did this, and we also added one proposed action that my co-leader Kate will address. The first proposed action centered on collaborating with community resources. Our team recommends the launch of a family resource and engagement center. Additionally, we would like to see the creation of a consortium of community partners. This will enable MCPS to coordinate and systematize the resources and services that are available to our schools, our students, and our families, and that will be equitable. Second, the planning team proposed the creation of instructional strategies that emphasize relationships and cultural proficiency. During the course of this planning period, we had a lot of action team meetings, so we knew that the instruction team was working a lot on this. So our group chose to focus on the relationship building piece of it. Our team suggested that we increase the number and type of family engagement activities. They suggested reworking some of our existing events to better meet the needs of our families, using professional development to improve the cultural proficiency, and then also conducting a review of the current practices that we have to make sure that we're exposing any barriers or bias.
Hello, I'm Kate Jackson. I'm with the school board as Virginia Tiered Systems of Support. I'm a coordinator. And I was excited to be part of this team. And the next 2 actions were really developed pre-COVID, but definitely need to stay in because it will be an initiative for Montgomery County moving forward. This one right here is talking about how we will provide after-school opportunities for birth to graduation. So I think we all realized through COVID how much we do rely on our public schools to help us with not just teaching our children, but also keeping them busy before and after school. So we hope that someday we can put this into place for sure. One of the things that I know transportation doesn't want us to bring up just yet, but we also talked about bringing in an after school bus so that our students can have transportation to and from school. And then finally, early childhood. This too is what we have in plans, as you heard from learning environments. But moving forward, we need to think more about our pre-K classrooms to ensure equity and to establish school readiness. So with that, we'll expand programming and we'll utilize our community partners so that we are sure to offer what our students need. So that is what poverty discussed and accomplished.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rob Johnson, and I am the Division Dean of Students for Montgomery County Public Schools. I have with me tonight Ms. Judy Diggs, who is the Director of Equity and Poverty for the division. It is indeed an honor and a pleasure to present to you the work of the Equity Action Team to support this year's MCPS strategic plan. The equity team consisted of 29 members that included students, parents, community members, teachers, building administrators, and school board personnel. Each person was motivated to take on the work of creating an equity plan for the division while recognizing that we are all charting new territory. We first explored our data by looking at the school quality profiles to track student performance information for the last 3 years, excluding the 1920 school year. In summary, the profile indicates that our Black students, Hispanics, ELL students, students with disabilities, and economically disadvantaged students were likely to perform at a lower rate than our white students for reading, writing, and mathematics. We also looked at the enrollment of our students in our AP and honors classes. We found that our Black students are less likely to be enrolled in our AP and honors classes in our 2 larger high schools. We also saw an increase in chronic absenteeism for our Black students over 3 years. The chronic absenteeism rate for our students with disabilities and economically disadvantaged students is double than that of white students. Our suspension rate for our Black students in 2 or more races increased each year for 3 school years we reviewed, while the rate of our white students decreased. Last year, our Black students in our 2 or more races of students were 2.5 times more likely to be suspended than that of white students. We researched the topics listed for underlying causes that could possibly explain achievement gaps and discipline disparities, and we developed key questions to guide our research. We understand that we all have biases and blind spots. Therefore, despite our best intentions and without our awareness, we are repeatedly exposed to stereotypes that shape the way we think about lots of different qualities. Prime example being that of age, gender, nationality, even height. Based on this knowledge, we decided we needed to research these topics. First, we looked at implicit bias, which is the process of associating stereotypes or attitudes towards categories of people without conscious awareness. Realizing that biases take some specific forms in educational settings, we also looked at deficit thinking ideology. This is a worldwide view that explains outcome inequalities as resulting from supposed moral, intellectual, and cultural deficiencies in marginalized communities and individuals. This is what's called a blame the victims ideology. Last, we looked at the poverty discipline belief, which is the assumption that poverty itself is a kind of culture characterized by dysfunctional behaviors that prevent success in school. Once again, a blame the victim mindset blames low-income people for the persistent adverse conditions in which they find themselves. Additionally, based on the explicit direction from the Strategic Plan Committee, we researched how to ensure all children would start school kindergarten ready. At this time, Judy will share with you our equity statement and principles and how we use them to develop our focus, equity strategies, and proposed actions.
So one of the next areas that we did research on was finding out what the definition of educational equity is. And in addition to that, we identified key principles that, when employed, lead us to meeting the needs of all students. And from this research, we created an equity statement to be inclusive of adults in the division as well as students. However, our primary focus and our task is on students. So to achieve our equity outcome for all students, we identified 4 key principles of equity to guide us. Impartiality is our first, which is our non-discrimination statement to ensure equal treatment of all. Opportunity is our second principle, which focuses on removing barriers and providing resources. We believe that all students should have access to the same rigorous educational standards. However, to provide that access does require systems of support to ensure that all students have what they need to succeed. Lastly, a school and classroom climate and a student's sense of belonging are recognized as important influences on student achievement. So based on our research and our statement of equity, we focused our action plan to take steps to, one, change those things that are capable of being changed, and two, to take action to create initiatives that are achievable and attainable, as well as sustainable. Here are our action steps that are already in progress. We currently have equity leads that have been assigned to all 20 of our buildings. So all of our schools, elementary and secondary, as well as our alternative school, has an equity lead. And this year, their primary focus will be to elevate students' voice by co-constructing safe spaces in the form of student cabinets. We have also established our Code of Conduct Advisory Committee. It's comprised of stakeholders, and they have provided input on the revision of the current discipline policies and practices so that they align with the state code of conduct model guidance. We have also started to review our current curriculum practices and procedures and have provided culturally relevant strategies to our administrators and teachers. We just completed our anti-bias, anti-racism series of professional development for all teachers and administrators. And these series focused on social justice and equity literacy. And here are some additional action steps that we feel like are important. A parent and community stakeholder group will be established to provide feedback on issues impacting diversity and equity within programs, policies, and practices. Learning opportunities will be provided to all division employees throughout the year that will enhance school culture and teaching. Current practices will be evaluated to support the implementation of new practices to increase student enrollment and success in ILEAD, advanced placement, and dual enrollment, particularly for our students who are underserved in those courses. Culture cafes or socials will be offered where adults can come together to learn about different cultures in a non-threatening way so that all county employees feel welcome, appreciated, and supported. An expansion of the Virginia Preschool Initiative, as well as our local pre-K programs to increase the number of students being served throughout the division. A uniform framework will be identified to analyze our data in an effort to minimize discipline issues and address the gaps and disproportionality. Now, MCPS has implemented positive behavior interventions and support, which is a research-based inclusive practice, and we've done this for about 4 years. But all of our schools have not fully implemented the process, so we have instituted a reset of PBIS, where it is expected that all schools will embed this practice in their daily routines. And last, we believe that our equity statement and principles will promote our mission and beliefs. We recommend that it be posted on the division webpage, in our schools, classrooms, and included in the first week of school registration packet for our parents.
Thank you both.
Good evening. My name is Jason Garrettson. I'm the Director of Student Services and School Safety. This is Natalie May, Coordinator for Section 504 for the division. We are very pleased tonight to present information from the Mental Health Action Team. You see here the task we were assigned, the task that we needed to accomplish with our group. We want to provide training and awareness for students and staff to learn resilience and life skills in a safe and supportive environment that promotes social, emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Very, very proud of the team we worked with. When it was all said and done, we had 27 total members. We met 7 different times from November through February for a total of almost 350 man-hours of work. Again, when you look at the list, of course, you have maybe some of the usual suspects, a lot of school employee type folks. We're also very proud that we included community agencies, university faculty, and private practice. And it was always so impressive to me how when we talked about the needs of our students and eventually also the needs of our staff in terms of mental health, how those outside partners always exhibited such a great degree of care and concern for us and for our students. We ended up with 3 major action steps. One of those action steps we kind of generically define as training and programs. In the area of training, we want to work with our newly hired staff and current staff, doing things like professional development opportunities in-house around mental health. In our new teacher academies, making it an emphasis area to think about mental health as we think about working with our students. We want to include it with our current staff in terms of PD opportunities and requiring some PD in the area of mental health for all employees as they seek to renew their teaching certificate every 10 years now. Additionally, with that, we want to take a look at the opportunities to add additional staff. We know from time to time we have opportunities to add some additional employees. We want to always keep an eye out and a mind on, are there some mental health aspects that we could support as we strive to get closer to that ideal target of 250 to 1 school counselor to student ratio. But there's also some other staffing positions that could also suit some needs around supporting mental health efforts. We also want to talk about some specialized teams in the division. We want to work to ensure that our threat assessment teams have the appropriate training so that they're able to fulfill that responsibility with fidelity. Also be sure that we follow those issues all the way to closure of a threat assessment. We also believe that we need to assign a multidisciplinary team to review school climate surveys and also youth risk behavior surveys as that information becomes available. We also believe that we need to work to have CPI teams assigned at each school. That's crisis prevention training at each school. Lastly, for all of our students, we believe that there needs to be an opportunity to participate in social emotional learning curriculum that will help support their mental health needs and help build those skills that you laid out for us in your assigned task when you first gave us this goal. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. May.
Thank you, Jason. That's one way. All right, the second action step is around partnerships. We're recommending to review the effectiveness of our mental health partnerships to ensure that all of our students' needs are being met. We want resources to be allocated equitably. We want to provide meaningful mentorships for our students in need. The impact of one adult can change the trajectory of a student's life. We also want to ensure that our current employees know about EAP, the resources and other mental health resources that are available to them within their community. We want them to be willing to use those resources as well. Our third action step is around awareness and education. We want the education for our students around mental health to be within the school day. We want our students to not only benefit from receiving more education and awareness around mental health, but for it to be at the forefront. We want themed months around mental health topics in schools, as well as presentations to students about resources in school and the community. We recommend that the information we provide about mental health be readily available on all school websites, as well as routinely including mental health topics within our social media and updates for staff. To reduce the stigma, we have to have the courage to talk about it, and we can do that together. Thank you. That's all we have for mental health, and I'm going to pass it back to Dr. Graham for any additional questions.
Thank you both.
Of this. And the folks kept talking about action steps. And so as you go through your book, pretty much you'll be able to see the to-do list for the next 6 years. And that to-do list, some of the to-dos have already been started. We felt like because of the delay of COVID, we needed to move forward, especially in the area of equity, we've moved some stuff forward. But as we move forward beyond this, we'll keep you updated. And then too, during our summer retreats, the action steps will be a discussion at the board for the board to make some decisions as to what's next. Because there's a lot of action steps to that a lot of things that on the to-do list for the next 6 years. And the board will be looking at those, evaluating those, and looking at, hey, what's the next thing that we need to focus on? But I just want to say thank you to the team. I mean, so much time was put into this, and so many folks took time to make this happen for us. And it is our guide, daily guide for the next 6 years. I am excited about the next 6 years and where we're going. And it is a true comprehensive approach to educating our children. And I can't tell you how excited I am. These were abbreviated presentations. We spent an entire day listening to all 5 of these groups, and we were energized when we left. The main strategic planning team, just totally energized and just excited. I told folks it was the best time I'd had in public education in 8 months, and it really was. And so, yeah. So anyway, all right, Lois.
So I will just echo Dr. Meyer's words. Really owe a thanks to everyone, Cambridge Strategic Services, the members of both the action teams and the strategic planning team, to Dr. Meyer, to the school board, and to all those community members. Back in October a year ago, they gave up 3 days to come and be with us for 3 solid days. And then lots of parent input and interviews, and just the amount of work that went into this is tremendous. And I have to say, I've been on several strategic planning teams and led 6-year plans for, I don't know, I think this is about my 4th time now. This is an ambitious plan, which it should be. There are goals here that obviously they could not go over every single goal, but they're very ambitious goals, which that's what you want. You want a system that's changing and moving. And the strategic plan team that came up with the draft, when I look at it a year later, how timely that they picked poverty, mental health, equity. I mean, all the things you're hearing around our nation. I think maybe our nation should come up with a plan. So I'm not here to answer all the questions, but the teams are here to answer questions. So if you have questions, we'll be glad to get the right people down to answer for you.
Before we open up the questions, thank you, Dr. Graham, with us and leading us on this. So what is next, so we can keep you doing further things?
I'll serve at your will. Any questions that you may have, the team, I'm sure.
Board members, do you have any questions? This will come to our approval next meeting, December, first meeting in December. Any questions at this point to any groups?
I don't have any questions, but a couple of things. Like Dr. Myers said, this was just an amazing process.
I agree.
The commitment, the number of hours that folks put in to do research and to make sure they were going to be doing things the right way for the right reasons for our students and our employees is just amazing. Especially with the, with all of them, but as Annie said, everything just fell in place.
Yeah.
You know, everything that we talked about last October, we need it now so much. And we need to make sure that we're raising these issues to everybody in the district and everybody in the community, because this is what we should be about in Montgomery County. This is one of the things when people look at Montgomery County, they're going to say, these folks are serious about making sure we're doing the right things. When I listened to the presentation from our poverty group, I was tearing because folks do not understand poverty. They don't understand what our students go through and how we as administrators and teachers and bus drivers and cafeteria workers help our students, not just by giving them food, but by talking to them and by recognizing we need a little extra support there. And the work that we're going to be doing through this plan is going to help everybody in the district be able to support all of our students. I was a little leery in the beginning about what's this going to look like and who's going to be sitting at the table, and I'm just speechless. The only thing that I can say is the next move besides approving this is that we put some policies in place that say, this is what we're going to be doing in Montgomery County, and not just wait for the next superintendent or the next person, this or that or whatever, and things fade away. And to make sure that during board retreats for the next 100 years, they will be looking at these same issues and making sure these policies are still fitting what our students and our community needs. So I just applaud all of you for the work that you're doing, and equity getting started with things that have to happen now. The student engagement has been absolutely wonderful, and I'll stop because I do want to go home too. But I just can't say enough about this process and how if we make sure we do what is recommended is done, we're going to be amazing.
I ditto the whole thing. It has been an amazing experience. I think this was my second one sitting through a strategic plan and never see anything this comprehensive. And the thing that after all 3 days, how it came together, that was jaw dropping and mind boggling. And because initially when I see us that many people doing that many things and that many voices, I wasn't sure how it's gonna come together or it is ever gonna come together, but it's an amazing process, and definitely I'm so looking forward to seeing everything.
It's a very impressive plan, and I applaud everybody for the amount of time that went into it. And I sat periodically on one of the committees, the mental health committee, and it was amazing how the amount of information that was shared and the research done. And I don't know how Jason and Natalie pulled all that together and made it sound so comprehensive and logical. But I think the key to plans like this, that strategic plans are terrific, but we need to honor the plan. And we need to make sure that we establish a way to assess our success at meeting the plan. And because I've worked with these types of plans in corporate, and they're all great ideas, and then 2 years later they've kind of fallen by the wayside and we're not looking at it. So I'd really, all that hard work needs to be honored. And I think the next step is how are we going to make it all happen? I know things are starting to happen, but to make sure that we stay true to the strategic plan.
And I agree 100%. It can't just sit on the shelf. It needs to be what we live by and what we do and who we are. And every decision we make, we're talking even in terms of, from once this is approved on the board docs, we're going to actually let you know which one, what is actually, how it's related to the strategic plan. This shouldn't even be on our board agenda unless it goes back to our strategic plan. And so, but it's not going to sit on the shelf. We're going to use it. It's going to be who we are, what we do. We're already talking about how we're going to organize it. And who's going to be given the responsibilities of the different leadership positions within that plan. And but no, I have a commitment to you that the next 5 years we're going to live this plan and we're going to move it forward. And because what's best for our community, it's what our community wanted. It's a community plan. So absolutely. And I've seen the exact same thing as you, Ms. Cass. I've seen it in several school divisions, And that is not what I want here. Absolutely.
Any other comments and questions at this time? Ready to move
Thanks.
forward?
And we'll bring it back December 1st for approval.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Next on the agenda, on October 6th, we presented the board with the revised instructional phases for our reopening plan. Tonight, we're asking you to approve the revised phase document. The revised document allows for additional flexibility as we continue to respond to COVID-19 pandemic. This does not change the phase that we are currently in. It just adds an additional option moving forward.
I have a motion to approve the revised instructional phase document as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second, double seconds.
I just have a comment. If that's
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, I was going to say any discussions anyway. Yeah.
Okay. I have just I have one concern, and that's in phase 3, level 3. So this is the phase where all students have the option of coming back either 4 or 5 days, whatever we determine. And remote instruction will continue, but remote instruction is going to continue. And I just think I have a concern about synchronous learning. So now I'm going to have maybe 20 kids in my classroom. So now you've increased my classroom, you've doubled my classroom management responsibilities, more kids out in the hallways, more kids mingle. And so there's so much more involved, yet I still have these students I'm supposed to be focused on that are on the screen. And I'm wondering if it makes more sense that if you want to remain remote, that's fine, but maybe it become more.
So let me answer that. And that goes with the survey. We're part of one of the survey questions. It doesn't have to be synchronous hybrid instruction at that next level. In the survey that we're, I think that's the next thing, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That we're getting ready to go over. One of the questions deals with asking teachers and families, would you want to separate classes into all in person, all remote? So teachers would not have that situation. You'd either have a classroom here or a classroom here in front of you. So I think that's an important question on the survey. I think I know what teachers will want. Now, what that will require is this.
It may not be what parents want, though.
Right. We'll see. I mean, that's something that will be discussion of the board, obviously, as to how we move forward. One thing it's going to require that may have some teachers saying, I'm not sure about that, is it's going to require schedule changes for second semester. We would have to change all teachers and student schedules. But if that's what they want, we can do that. But that is one of the questions that we'll be asking in the survey. So that could actually change moving forward. Is it that hybrid that they're doing now where you have a few here and a few there, or is it all here or all there?
Yeah, I in conversations I've had and just myself, I would think that would be a very difficult chore to monitor, especially if you're going to have a lot of kids sitting in front of you and then having to handle the ones that are, and also as a remote learner, you're not going to probably get the same kind of attention you're getting right now in remote learning. And remote learning, when you're one of maybe 5 and there's 20 kids in the classroom, is going to be a lot different than what remote learning is like right now.
Absolutely. So this decision you guys will have to make once we get all the survey data back and how we move forward.
How can we approve this today?
Yeah,
though?
so I think I see
I
what
don't
you're-
want to approve this then if you're
Let me
telling
ask
me.
this.
But
What if we
I don't want to
said-
say that's okay.
What if we said all students participating in remote instruction may receive a combination of synchronous and or asynchronous instruction? In other words, don't hold us into which type we're going to go, right?
Would it make sense to wait
Or
to
just
for
strike that
this until
sentence? I
after the
don't know that it
survey is
even
over? Do we
needs
need
to
to approve
be-
this today?
You could wait.
I mean, I'm just
Because I
wondering,
think
is something
because
going to?
They're major, on December 1st, to
probably
be quite frank, with the surveys coming back, you guys are going to be making major decisions
Right.
as to how we move forward
Yeah.
for the rest of the year based on those surveys. And so, I
So it will be okay to approve it then
think so.
with the survey
You
results?
see any reason
Yeah.
why not?
like
I
putting the
just-
cart before the
Not at
horse.
all.
I
Yeah.
couldn't say yes to this the way it's written. So I'd have, I'd rather, I'd like to be able to say yes. And
I mean, except that,
Can we
I
tweak
agree with you that we shouldn't, there's no need to write it in a way that puts us in a corner, but
Right.
why not give ourselves these options sooner? I mean, if we see an outbreak
I
in the next
agree.
month, who
Okay.
knows? I mean,
true, that's true.
Let me look at it. Let me just
As long as
let's
we
not
leave
hold
it-
ourselves either way, right?
help me, Ms. Whitaker.
So phase
Or-
3, level 3, I wrote down what Mr. Chewbacca suggested, which I think would work, was all students participating in remote instruction will receive
May receive.
a combination of synchronous and asynchronous instruction. I think you could add in, the other piece that was different was we did clarify, specify a little bit more the students in assistance program and them attending at the different levels. So that was in the plan. It just wasn't in this document. So if you didn't approve today, we would still be able to do that. But I think Mr. Chewbacca is correct that if for some reason you wanted to go to that phase, if we made the change that he recommended, you would still have it available to you. And then you could clarify it later if you chose to change that to one or the other.
I don't think we're gonna be making the decision to put more people in the school anytime soon, before December 1st. I
No.
mean,
No,
so,
not
I
before
mean, there's no
December
right,
1st.
I mean,
Right.
this doesn't affect if we were to go the opposite direction. If for some reason there's an outbreak and we have to
I
go
think
the other
we're at level
way.
2, aren't we?
Correct.
Phase 3, level 2. So they're actually level 1, phase 3, level 1 is a new level as well.
Oh, it is?
So, yeah.
Oh, I
so
thought it was
good.
just level 3 was, okay.
3 is the biggest change there.
3 is, and then adding the 6th grade students
Yeah.
to level 1 of
Can we
phase 3.
approve it with this change?
That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I think
what
that
I'd
will
like
be
to hear
probably,
too.
that
And-
we don't put another thing on the
All right,
agenda.
read it. Somebody
Probably going to be. bigger
read
too.
what you're asking. So you're all clear on that.
All students participating in remote instruction will receive synchronous, asynchronous, or a combination of that like asynchronous and synchronous, because it could be one or the other or a combination of both.
And that may work better. And that may be what we end up.
Well, I don't know that we're gonna go to asynchronous instruction.
Well,
Mr. Pauly, can you help us out?
I would have just said and/or, synchronous and/or asynchronous learning.
Yeah,
Same thing.
same thing. As long as we have the, option.
All right, but asynchronous learning is, we're still gonna
Virtual
have
Virginia.
synchronous learning, but it might not be the hybrid model where we have students in front and students on the computer.
It would be
Asynchronous
just a
only
class where
happens-
Everyone is remote, is what you're saying.
Right, it would be,
Facility.
yeah, so it's still synchronous instruction, remote.
It may not
All
be in
students participating in
hybrid,
remote instruction will receive synchronous instruction.
but it may not be in hybrid form.
But yeah, we didn't specify the actual form it would be in. I think this still leaves us open
Yeah.
to either do hybrid
I
or
see.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think
see.
it puts us in the corner. Basically, I don't want to say that we're going to offer asynchronous instruction to remote students. That's what we did at the end of school.
Yeah, we
That is
don't
not
want
what we
that.
want
We
to
don't want
go
that.
towards. Does that make sense?
It does, but that is our model. Our virtual kids they're getting asynchronous.
Right, but we're not talking about that.
That's virtual Virginia. We cannot.
You don't want
control
them
that.
included in that piece for the
Uh-uh.
students.
We only use asynchronous in phase 1, level 1. That's the only time asynchronous
Right,
is used, is phase 1,
exactly.
level 1.
Yeah.
So it's not. So it doesn't keep us from doing what you're asking.
Okay.
What the
Yeah.
survey will come back
Yeah.
as.
Right.
All right. Yeah.
Because we're
I-
still going to do synchronous learning for remote students.
Yeah.
The question is, will there be
We will have a
students in front of the
hybrid or not,
teacher?
yeah.
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 Or will the classes be separate?
Yeah.
Right,
At some point.
Yeah.
and that's what the survey will tell us.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. So it doesn't tie us.
Does that make sense, Ms. Gass?
It makes sense, sort of, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but it makes, I understand what you're saying.
We can always change
I
it.
don't know if I like
Number.
just voting on that right. I mean, it just I realize the concept is to give us, kind of wiggle room for what we want to do, but I worry sometimes with that.
So we had a lot of discussion about how we were gathering information and from who a few weeks ago, a few months ago. And I just think we need to wait for the survey to value what we say that we're doing by including more people in putting that together to maybe have a deeper idea of what our teachers and parents and students need and want. So why would we, let's go back and change it now that we got the survey. Why not just wait for the survey and then look at what we have here?
I guess what I was saying, the survey has no impact on what,
Right.
what
Yeah,
we're
Exactly.
doing
it
here.
doesn't.
It has no
make
impact
a
This is-
on this
difference.
phase.
Right.
It just basically just, the survey has no impact on this
That
level.
phase, right.
Yeah.
And the
Well-
advantage is to have those levels available to us right away.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, if
However,
you're-
we wouldn't go to that level until after December 1st and data comes back.
Right.
Right? I mean, you can still wait and approve it on December 1st.
I mean, if you guys wanna
But it's up
strike-
to you guys. There's a motion on the
We get a
floor, right?
consensus.
There's a motion on the
I'm
table.
good with
I'm-
approving it.
I'm good with approving
I
it
think
too.
community members need to see that we're moving forward. I really do. I don't go anywhere, do anything that someone, students, parents come up to me and make some kind of comment to me about we have got to get on track.
Yeah.
And this is just a little bit of something saying, hey, we've not forgotten you. We're moving forward. We're not in stagnant water. We're still working with it. And no matter what the survey says to me, that's the goal we've got to work toward. We've got to.
So I see you all want to approve. I'm
And-
okay with
and-
approving.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Jamie, because I hear it too. But I also hear folks saying, I didn't get any input in this. Nobody asked me about this or about that, from students also. And we had a lot of discussion about how we gather that information.
Well, from
How we move things
They can take the
with
survey.
the information from the stakeholders.
from the survey, if something comes out totally different level and phase combination suggested, there is nothing to say we can't incorporate that and revise this one more time, all right, at any particular time.
I see what Ms. Franklin is saying. and
Yeah.
Actually, you've convinced me on level 3. We're not going to use level 3 before then anyway. So why would we define it before we got the cert? I agree on that, but I do think it's, for me, I think we should go, level 1 doesn't impact anything. And I think that would be a good one to have.
What's the
in-
difference between, this is the one where sixth grade is,
Yeah, basically, if we're in a position where we, let's say cases spike again and things kind of iffy, it allows us to, some of the concerns when you're on that edge is childcare, right? And kids that are, sixth graders especially being left at home, and fifth graders being left at home. So this allows us a little bit more flexibility maybe to.
Now we have to remember
All
that we
that.
have a motion on the table,
Yeah.
so.
We need to go with the motion on the table. Do we have consensus? Do you want to do roll call?
It's fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
No.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
no.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Kadam?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Let's see, we're opening plan feedback and survey on October 12th. We began
Dr.
gathering.
Meyer, before we move forward, can we give 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Sure.
Great idea.
That'd be
Just,
good.
yeah, just a bathroom break.
I've been waiting for that.
It's it is, what is it, 9:09? Let's be back
Well,
as
I was gonna
quick
say,
as
let's
possible.
Make it 5 minutes because it's not, sometimes we carry it out till
Going back to reopening plan feedback and survey info.
Yeah, ready?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, reopening plan feedback and survey. On October 12th, we began gathering feedback on our reopening plan via a thought exchange. The feedback from the thought exchange was compiled and shared with 6 advisory committees representing more than 100 stakeholders. The committees also reviewed a draft survey instrument that was created using the major themes from the thought exchange. Feedback of the draft survey was incorporated into an updated survey. The committees had the opportunity to take the updated survey and provide additional feedback. That feedback was incorporated into the final version of the survey. An overview of the process and data collected can be found in the board docs. A draft of the survey is also available in board docs. This is presented for your information tonight. The results of the survey and recommendations for the advisory committees will be brought to you on December 1st. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at the survey. Have any other further questions? Ms. Whitaker is the one that led this process, but we had a lot of folks involved in developing this, and I think we've come up with a good product and get some good information as we move forward. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for the staff about the feedback and also the survey, draft survey?
Have we solved our problems with surveys as far as making sure that we don't have
Double, triple,
multiple responses and that it's.
I think we did, yeah.
Yes, ma'am, we have.
Yeah, we've been, we're being clear on asking what their role is, but just that whole idea of making sure we don't have double. Okay, good.
Go ahead, explain how.
We're using SurveyMonkey as our tool. SurveyMonkey allows for us to limit the participation. And there's also a video that you can't see because of the way we outputted the survey that explains that we're asking for each family to take it once and how that process works. But SurveyMonkey allows us to narrow that down a little bit better than the complications that we have with using Google Forms. We're confident in it.
I looked at the feedback and then the survey, and I think we covered all the thoughts shared and thought exchange in the survey per se, that we may get answers to some of the questions that they put through or problems that they suggested they are having, whether it's a teacher, student, or parents. So looks like a good coverage to get a good feedback from the survey.
I have one comment on question number 7. Should MCPS continue to offer classes in a hybrid format? Can you guys hear me? I don't know if it's coming out or not. Or should classes be scheduled into all remote and all in-person sections? And then we go on with a note. But the note is kind of leading, and it, separating students would cause schedule changes for teachers and students and may create larger class sizes. It talks about the negatives of doing it. It doesn't mention any of the positives.
Well, of course, the positives would be what teachers already know, things you talked about. But what I don't want folks to do is to choose that, and then all of a sudden, all the kids and teachers' schedules change, and they say, "Well, I didn't know that was going to happen if we chose this." So I think we need to be very upfront that is the consequence of making that change.
So it would definitely would cause a change in their schedule. So if my student chooses that, for sure, their schedule is going to change.
Yes, if we choose to separate classes like that with all remote and all in person. So for instance, you have a teacher who teaches 3 sections of U.S. history, and they have 60 kids, 20 in a class. Well, right now they're sort of divided amongst those 3 classes, the remote kids. So what you would do is take all of the remote kids, put them in one section, which would change several of their classes, and then you would take the kids that are in the in-person and put them in another class. And then with a middle or high school schedule, it changes their entire schedule when you actually go and do that.
Definitely middle and high will affect. Oh.
It's most likely to change a student's schedule more so than a teacher's schedule, but it's still possible that a teacher schedule could change as well. Because, an advantage to that, if we did move to that, is too, remote kids would not necessarily have to be in the same school as their teacher. That's sort of an advantage to that too. You could have a teacher at Christiansburg High School teaching a section of remote, but they could have kids from any of the county schools during that time. So that is an advantage of that too. But it's gonna change some schedules. But here's a good thing: if this were to be chosen, I would not recommend this is done until second semester, because that semester anyway, most of our schools are changing schedules anyway. And so that would be the easiest time. Now our schools and administration would have to rework the entire master schedule between sometime over, a month or so. But that can be done. But at the semester is the easiest time for that to actually occur. But we want to make folks know that in places where you have a year-long schedule, like some schools have what the AB blocks, that would possibly be changed, what they take in the order in which they take the class.
So I'll send you an email. There was a few of the questions that, to me, I had some questions about. I'll send that separately, maybe to you. But
Please send it to Ms. Drake as well.
Oh, sorry, to Ms. Drake. Okay. But two things. I guess one thing I do. We had a nice section of kind of disclaimers up at the top, and I think it may be worth saying. I don't want people to get the impression that if we if a certain question gets the most votes, that's automatically the way that we're going to go. Obviously we want community input, but I think to let people know that, this something to that effect, I think might be helpful. And the other thing is on the thought exchange, and also in our emails and stuff, we've heard from a lot of teachers. I understand what some of the frustrations and some of the sticking points are. When last month, when the administration kind of came up with at least one solution, there was obviously a lot of pushback. And one of the things I kept saying to teachers and to people who would write to me is, I hear you. What's your suggestion? Like, what would be a better solution for you? Because I think that, what we saw from those, from that survey was that while you didn't have a majority of people that wanted it, you still had a pretty sizable minority. I mean, you had one third of your people really, felt strongly about it one way, and maybe 2/3 or so the other way. So I think in my mind, there was a need for there is a need for some kind of compromise, maybe not an exactly in the middle compromise, but anyway, I'm kind of eager to see suggestions from teachers about what, maybe specific things that they would like to see us do. And I guess I haven't seen a whole lot of that. And I think even in the survey, I wonder if, can we give a 150 character, 200 character comment section so that at least the committee that sees these can at least peruse the comments? Because I feel like otherwise they're going to come to us as the board, which kind of short circuits the process a little bit. It's just a suggestion, but
Could it be a question for teachers only, or for staff only, or whatever, however we worded it, that or comments on
So what we found,
suggestion on easing any suggestions they have on kind of easing their burden to some degree? I don't know. Those aren't quite the words I'd want to use, probably.
Well, I mean, I think some teachers aren't necessarily talking about easing the burden. Some teachers want, more time because for the students or for their classes or whatever. I just think it's always helpful on these surveys. And I know that it might require more time, but if we have a committee that's reviewing the results, giving people a chance to just, say something to the committee. I don't know. Is that
it's very hard to dig through that data. So we certainly could have an open-ended question, but if you have, that 2,000 responses, it's just really hard at that point to do something. You could certainly share it, but in terms of breaking it down, it would be a hard process to really dig into, what does that mean and what does that look like?
I think it's something we should do separately. I think we need to look at those issues, but I think it should be something, maybe it's not included in this particular survey. It's hard to do a survey for teachers, students, and parents, because the issues are all a lot, they're a little
Yeah.
different.
If I may, Ms. Whitaker, I think thought exchange lends itself well to open-ended questions. And the beauty in a thought exchange is that people can see other people's thoughts and rank them.
Yeah.
And so then you're not starting from a place of having to come up with something on your own.
Okay.
You're
Yeah,
able
no,
to
I-
see the ideas of others, rank them, and then also put in your own ideas. So that's why for the reopening, right? We started with that open funnel for feedback. It's all free form, and then people rank, and then we narrow it for the survey because we're finding the themes and the areas of commonality, and then saying these are the things we need specific, really certain data points on, feedback on. But I mean, certainly thought exchange is something that we use throughout the year and
I mean, I'm just
can
thinking,
look
could we
at.
do another thought exchange? with
Absolutely.
that's easy with a different type of question about some things that were talked about tonight that teachers get to comment on, just teachers maybe.
And we can't do that. Yes, we can set it up that way.
We open up another thought exchange
Absolutely.
regarding.
But I'm even talking about like,
Support.
tell me specifically, you know, how do we fix this? You know, how do we fix this for
But
you?
that's
kind
what
of
they
a thing.
They can do that in the
Yeah,
thought exchange.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
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 And so, and then see what rises to the top of that. What kind of question do you think that should be?
So we'd work with Thought Exchange on that. They have a team whose whole job, we go to them with an idea and they help us work the question and make sure that the question is written in a way to gather the best input. They have a great team of people who support us and who help us. And so I usually send them a draft. Here's what I'm thinking. And they take it and they completely rewrite it when they send it back to me and say, you want honest and open expression. Here is the way you need to phrase this question to get that. So we'll take the ideas you have, we'll get a question from them, we'll send it back out maybe in the Tuesday telegram before we make it live. Does that sound okay?
I think every teacher has their own particular concerns. I mean, they're not all the same, as Mark said, that, you know, some teachers, it's not seeing the students enough or not getting enough instruction time. For other teachers, it's, you know, the constant changing of the students rotating in and out constantly and coming and going, and you know, it varies.
Yeah.
And so
It does. Now, that's what's good about the thought exchange. It sort of
you can
it sort of puts the common themes together.
right.
It's a great tool.
I mean, they gave a great feedback for definitely teachers. And actually there are teams between the teachers and the parents and the students, and, you know, like the students, well, everybody was liking Wednesdays, you know, that was very obvious. And the teachers, of course, everybody was very overwhelmed. I mean, there were a couple, you know, really common themes, and the parents was like, we need to go full-time back. Seems like the, you know, common theme. So you see the common themes. I think that's really good. The way that we can ask just teachers, you know, what else we can do, or
what suggestions do they
or
have?
What suggestions you have?
Because I think that's
think-
the key, is not just what's wrong, because
Yeah.
we can all
Yeah.
come up with lots of complaints. But what suggestions do you have to improve it? Because it's easy for us to sit here and try to figure that out.
That's a great question.
Easy
Yeah.
thing.
What suggestion to
You know,
improve?
what,
them?
you know, what's your biggest concern, and what suggestions do you have to improve that?
Yeah, good one.
You know, this, you know, we hear it often about things being added to teachers' plates.
Yeah.
This year, there's definitely things that have been added to teachers' plates simply because of the new
Oh,
way
the
that we're
crazy
having to do
scale, yeah.
things. And so I think a good thought exchange would be something about what can we remove to help you, you know?
Yeah.
That would be a good start. What can we not do?
The uninitiative.
You know, that's it's one thing, you know, during the strategic planning process, part of the strategic planning, they talked about strategic abandonment.
Yeah.
Right.
Strategic abandonment is just as important as strategic planning
Putting
and
that,
doing
yeah.
more. We need to talk about what can we not do moving forward as much as we talk about what we can do.
Yeah.
And what's blocking you from getting
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
done?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Thank
Good,
y'all.
great.
We'll do
Yeah.
that and get that information to you as well.
So we are moving forward with advisory committee
Yes. So on September 1st, Ms.
presentation.
So we're not voting on anything.
No, you don't vote in survey. On September 1st, Ms. Whitaker provided an overview of the advisory committees and MCPS. The information available tonight provides information on committee structure. Tonight, we recommend that 5 committees be designated as school board committees: CTE, CX, Safety Audit Committee, School Health Advisory Board, and Gifted Advisory Committee. On December 1, the board will be presented with names to fill the school board committees for their approval. By February, each of the school board committees will report to the board with a recommendation for a scope of work document. Tonight, we're asking the board to approve the 5 designated committees as reporting directly to the school board.
May I have a motion to approve the following committees to report directly to the school board: CTE, Special Ed Advisory Committee, Safety Audit, School Health, and Gifted Advisory.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussions, board members?
Yeah, I believe equity should be added to these committees. We need to
All right,
hear that.
it is. Tell.
Yes, equity, you mean to the committees that report to the board?
Right.
The reason that they did not make that recommendation was due to the nature of how we align them. So the ones that are governed by law or policy, if they're in place, were the ones that we moved under the board's direction. And then those that were created by MCPS but do not have any law or policies that govern them were the ones that I had recommended as superintendents. You certainly can, make any choices, but that was the reason behind the recommendation for those.
The equity committee can make reports to the board.
Yes.
Per se, and they will. They'll give you updates constantly, but there's nothing, these are legal committees by law. So that's still the difference.
Any other questions, comments?
Thanks,
Yeah.
Annie, for all the work you did on this. I'm really
Yes.
pleased that we are, that we're codifying this, because I do think that this is a board that values the input of our public, and I'm really pleased to see how it has all turned out. So thank you.
Yes, I'm going to still push back because I think equity is something that we say that we're valuing, and that it needs to have a place where it's actually, I'm saying everything, we need to do policies to back up what we're saying. And this is one of the places I think that we need to have this here as a committee that is going to report to the board as far as how well we're doing with equity. For me, it shows another level of commitment.
I agree with Penny. I think that if we truly believe that it's that, then why, I think they should have, use a cliche, a place at the table, so to some degree.
With the same token, we have then mental health.
Poverty, instruction, all
yeah.
the strategic planning committees.
So those are all strategic planning action teams that, then, because right now the calendar, curriculum, elementary advisory, curriculum, secondary advisory, which are the instruction part, and then equity, health insurance, mental health. They are the ones right now reporting superintendent because they are not buying with the law dictated by law or given parameter under law. So
Well, either is gifted or school health.
They are.
They
are.
Yeah.
They're actually in the Code of Virginia.
And policy.
And so, their policy, Code of Virginia. Ms. Whitaker, can you explain to them, if you make it a board
Yes.
reporting committee, the responsibilities of those committees is
Are
pretty
different.
intense
Yeah.
in terms of our office, and it's like a school board meeting. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it would change the structure of their meetings so that maybe now where they're having open meetings and everybody's discussing and engaging and talking back and forth, when they become a committee of the board, they function just like the board. So they have to have a meeting like this with agendas. They have to have public comment. Only people can talk during that public comment time. It really puts different rules on them.
Somebody else do
No,
that.
we don't want that.
Yeah.
But I think
But we can have them report to you all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Give
I
you
mean,
reports.
I think we need to look at some kind of structure where our strategic plan committees are
Reporting,
reporting to the
yep.
board.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, they
yeah.
absolutely
I
will.
think that's
Yeah,
what
and
we
We
need.
plan on that happening multiple times during the school year to get quick updates on what's going on. Absolutely. Yep, I agree with that 100%.
I think I have the motion and second. Any further discussion?
Ms. Vaughn,
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Trabaka,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Ms. Graham,
Yes.
Ms. Cass,
Yes.
Ms. Parton,
Yes.
Ms. Kennard,
Yes.
motion carries.
Checking my microphone.
They adjusted the levels on the mics to help us with the popping. Dr. Meyer was going in and out, Ms. Whitaker was going in and out, so
All right.
we're
Okay.
And I was
adjusting
not-
as we go.
knocking mine down.
All right, next, the gifted plan was first presented to the board on June 16th. The board heard directly from the gifted committee members about the recommendations for the gifted plan. The board also heard from the administration regarding those recommendations. Tonight, we're asking you to approve the gifted plan as presented.
May I have a motion to approve the gifted plan as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussions, board members?
So I wasn't at the last meeting, but I went back and watched it, and I was telling Ms. Naff that I had the luxury of, being able to pause things and look at things and that kind of a thing.
And being
And-
awake.
What's that?
Being awake.
Yeah.
It was like 12 o'clock.
Yeah. So I think some of our gifted plan and everything kind of came out of this whole process in the spring, and I'm really glad that it did. It's interesting to me that what came out from what I heard of the gifted committee and the response was there was probably 80% agreement or
Quite a
overlap.
bit match, yeah.
But I do think it was really nice to be able to have that committee there, and I agree with Ms. Franklin and
Reporting
that
is
yeah,
good.
if we're going to have these committees, to have them come report to us at least once at the end on their work. But I'm going to support the plan tonight. But I will say there's kind of two things I think that bubble to the top for me, listening to both the parents in the committee and listening to our leadership team on that. And that's that I do think we need to start thinking about backfilling those GRT positions that were lost, at the 2.5 positions, because a lot of, and the parents, and I say parents, but I guess there's teachers also, the committee members repeatedly have said throughout the process when they have sent us the material and stuff in the spring, admitted, we don't expect you guys to do everything that we're asking for, but a lot of the stuff is resource intensive. I mean, some of the, I tried to go back and look exactly at, okay, what were they asking? What did we respond?
Yeah.
Where was the disagreement? And it was almost always resource type thing. I mean, there was stuff that is written into the plan and there's agreement on there, but if the parents are coming to us and saying, we still need this done differently, that says to me there's probably some differences in execution, at least in expectations, right? And obviously we're not going to fix it all, but there's definitely a resource issue there. So I hope that the board will look at, in our next budget cycle, perhaps adding, if there's agreement, to adding those positions back. And also the other thing that came out for me was there was all that talk about the iLead stuff. And Ms. Graham, I think you made a good point about that. I also went back and looked at specifically what the GAC was asking, and they actually weren't saying that we shouldn't do iLead. They were once again saying that iLead had many components that were good. They were just saying the leadership component, they were basically asking, that maybe we shouldn't be doing that piece. And I don't want to get down into the weeds of whether we should or shouldn't. But again, it comes back to a resource issue, because we only have the resources to identify and give services in math and language arts. So, I think that's where some of that concern is. So anyway, I think that a big step in the right direction would be to give those 2.5 positions back. So thank you,
Yeah. Thank
Ms.
you for
Naff,
your
and
patience,
and
Ms.
for
Naff.
Ms.
Since
Fatinos and the
June.
other GRTs, and also for the GAC, which quite frankly did just a wonderful, I mean, you couldn't ask much more in a committee that was engaged. And, I'm sure they were probably a pain in the neck to you guys at times, but I do appreciate that they were engaged in that. So.
Well, definitely it helped to for us to look all the committees and align them and, setting the expectation moving forward for everyone. I think turned out to be a good, I think, practice for all of us. I think, any more
Ready for a
discussion? And we're ready, Ms. Drake.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Trabaka?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Next, policy 5-4.5. This is for approval. The policy was brought to the board for first reading on October 6th. The proposed policy change adjusts the weight of the standards used in teacher evaluations. The policy update enacts the change for this school year. Tonight, we're asking you to approve the revised policy as presented.
So,
You. I have the motion and
Second.
second.
Thank you.
Any questions, board members? This is our second reading. If everybody is in good shape, we're ready, Ms. Drake.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Trabaka?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Karan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all. The next item is the school board norms and protocols, and that's information. We'll be approving that on December 1st. And that's the document we work with VSBA. So you are all familiar. Only part we took it out at this time is how we do the self-evaluation, because the way it was, we weren't following up. And since December 15, we will have another meeting with VSBA. We will revise that and we'll put it in our norms and protocols after we all worked on it and agree on it. But the rest is the way that we together worked on it, and it will come back to us December 1st to approve. Do you have any questions at this time? And moving forward, the last one is the VSBA legislative positions, which Ms. Parton kindly gonna vote on it on November 16 at the Delegate Assembly virtually. And I don't know what you decided, whether Mr. Chabaka is attending as well, or I don't know how you're working.
I'm going to leave that up to him.
Yeah, I think
I'd
we'll
love to have
try.
him if he can,
Okay.
if he can attend.
I think, yeah.
Okay, about what I wanted to bring it up because, procedurally, as a board, we have to see what their new positions are. And that's on that document. But if you're very curious, I can, they have 6 new ones. 6 positions to vote, and 2 of them new and 4 of them amendments. One is behavioral interventions support position. The other one is assessment, reform, and accountability. Nothing out of ordinary. Affordability of dual enrollment, volunteers, and access to electronic textbook. And the last one actually is probably important under COVID conditions and Zoom meetings. They are putting a position on VSBA for 21st century communication for school board members, basically without the quorum having a public electronic meeting. So I don't know how this will go, but it is the position that it takes.
Yeah.
So those are the ones. Thank you, Ms. Parton. And I
Explain,
think
excuse me, John, explain that last one again.
the last one is 21st century communication for school board members. There is apparently a position that they have, but they want to amend that, right now, for us to have an electronic meeting, we have to have a quorum in a room, and then the rest of them can participate electronically. But I think they want that to be amended, that we can meet electronically
All of
without the
us.
quorum, all of us.
Right.
Anytime that we would want
Anytime
to.
we want it.
Right. It's just making it safer if we, have to shut down again, that we can continue to conduct business,
Right, so.
not just emergency.
We can
business.
meet remotely, basically.
Okay, well, we can do that
Let me
already.
go back
I'm
and
sorry,
see.
I just don't understand what that means.
Let me see if I can go back to quickly.
Yeah, I think I think we do that already, or when we did that this year, I think it was, we were limited in the kind of business that we could
Yeah,
interact.
we couldn't do anything and everything.
Not
That's right.
regular
Yeah,
business,
because
right.
we were only doing the emergency things. Thank you, Mr.
Right.
Chabaka. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I put those down very short-handed and didn't put much explanation on my
And
notes.
I'm
so-
assuming that as a board, so will we vote on?
We don't vote on, but at least we have to hear when she
this-
say
yes.
yay to all.
Yeah.
You know, she
We have
shouldn't
to
be
know.
saying anything we
Yeah,
don't, we
yeah,
don't
yeah.
want, we don't
Sure.
want her to say
Right.
yay or nay, so.
So by saying yay, we are supporting them.
That's
and-
right, yeah, that's
exactly.
right, so.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Let's see, moving on to unfinished business. Any unfinished business?
I'd like for
Members?
Tommy to give us an update on
Mhm.
what happened
Yeah.
when he departed us.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's unfinished.
We would love to hear.
No scratches on them or anything.
So at the meeting tonight, the Board of Supervisors approved, they were considering 3 options on how to fund the merit stipend. Option A was $1 million of their CARES Act funds. And then obviously the other changes we had in the letter. Option B was $500,000 of CARES Act funds, and then taking $500,000 out of our operating budget, moving it to capital, thereby creating $1 million. And then option C was no funds would be provided.
The second was taking it out of theirs.
They end up replenishing through them our operating budget.
It wasn't taking money from us. It was
Right.
their
Right.
money. Okay.
So they're
That's the
going to
best
go,
option.
apparently they're going to go with option B. Then and I got there at the end of the meeting, I was listening, we were texting back and forth before I left. The board of Supervisors believes that and we got into discussion before I get to that point. We got into discussion about they wanted, in our request for unfreezing the budget, they wanted to take the 1.55 million and hold that out. And I objected to that. Their concern is that where were we covering the ADM? And I said, well, we've always had the cushion being within, that's why we weren't doing the salary adjustment until January 1st. I think they're overstepping
Yeah.
their bounds.
Yeah, very much. so.
And expressed my reservations about what they were doing. They, as a board, expressed the need for there to be more joint meetings between the school board and the Board of Supervisors. Mr. King was not happy with the way the whole emails and everything went. He did reference, and there is no reporters in here.
You're on, you're on YouTube live stream.
Yeah.
We're live.
But
Oh, we're online.
they were concerned that the actions that were taking tried to force the hand, it's supposed to say force the hand of the Board of Supervisors. And as there was a conversation between me and one of the board members after the meeting, who's pro schools, he's definitely pro schools. But he thought that maybe we had gone backwards a little bit. And, he thought
Absolutely.
about bringing the
Absolutely.
boards together that, we could get back to where we were before. They are sending questions over related to the difference between part-time and full-time. We discussed that. I think they want something that's similar to what they do as a county. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because we are different. Our employees are different. The jobs are different.
Because they're offering less to their part-time employees, so they want us to offer less to
Correct.
ours. That's what my supervisor.
But here's the interesting thing on our case. So bus drivers who since March 16th have been out bringing food to people. I mean, they've been out every day bringing meals, didn't miss one. And out of 100 bus drivers, 97 are 4 hours and 15 minutes.
Right,
So under our definition of part-time, they're part-time.
right.
but yet they were probably one of the leading groups in being with students, parents, in the community every day.
Exposed.
And that's just,
That's right.
you know, Dr. Meyer, my recommendation to him, he agreed with it, wouldn't be right
No,
to do that to our bus drivers.
right.
That's
There's
just one group. I mean, there's
Right.
more groups than that, but that's
There's
just an example.
no way
cafeteria
you
worker.
can compare their part-time
No.
employees and our part-time employees. There's no way, you know.
I
and
think we'll get
told-
past that. I mean, I
Yeah.
do. I think their administration understood it through the conversation this evening. They're sending me the questions. I'll respond. And I think I know every one of their questions, their answers off the top of my head. But I think we're in a good spot to at least get the stipend done, get it funded, and then work together on how we're gonna get the budgets done.
And again, for the listening public out there on YouTube, we told them many times that when time comes, when they're ready to release, when they're ready with their revenue, and they find out their revenue, that they're in good shape. In October 13, I think, meeting, that they have 10.3 million, I think, carryover, and, you know, their revenues are positive. And from that, forward, we said when they were at that moment, you know, let's talk about it so we can give our raises and their raises together. So that means they have to release, obviously, but they, you know, deferred for us. So we can talk about it and we can do this together. And they definitely didn't do that.
No, they jumped.
And Ms. Biggs knew, Ms. Biggs tried to explain that relationship has been good and this is going to put it, you know, in a bad, you know, place. And she was, you know, right, but nobody wanted to listen.
Well, it also shows, to me, it shows that they don't, at least I feel it shows they don't see the importance of educators in our county. I mean, they made this decision, this rash decision to just go, you know, give all county employees, and they just totally forgot about everybody at MCPS. It's like as though we didn't even exist. I mean, that's insulting. I find that extremely insulting.
I agree. It continues to feel like we're the ugly stepchild. And maybe even worse than that, not part of the family.
Yeah, it's
But,
like-
you know, like Ms. Karan said, you know, we meet every month. We make the agendas. We put that on there. We have that discussion. And at no point did they say, yes, we're ready to discuss that. We can even meet sooner. We're ready to make a move on it. Nor did they give Dr. Meyer a courtesy call at all to say this is what's going to come up. Because even though it wasn't on the agenda, you know it had to have been figured out ahead of time because they had to know all the money pieces to be able to do that. That can't happen on the fly.
So I agree with what has been said. And I also agree with the overstepping. When I was viewing the meeting, there were comments made by supervisors about operations and what we were doing, the school system that may have been swaying their decisions. We don't like the way you're running the school district, so we're just gonna treat you a little different. That's not their job.
No.
That is not their job. The decisions that were made may not have been unanimous, and some of them may not have been involving as many people as some people may have wanted them to be, but they were decisions that were made to try to make sure we were doing the best things for students. And we should not be held hostage because someone doesn't like a decision that we made as a school district.
Yeah, I mean, they're anxious to get kids back in school yet. Okay, so you're so anxious to get them back in school, but you don't want to reward the people who are with them all day long. I mean, it makes no sense. That there is no logic there.
And at any time, they can also say, let's have a joint meeting. We've got some things we want to talk about. It works both ways.
Yep.
And we're in the middle of this. So that kind of makes everything a little bit more difficult. Because we could Zoom a big meeting, but it is not the same thing as sitting down
Yes.
face to face, possibly sharing some type of food and building that relationship that seems kind of weird right now.
Can I say one thing?
Sure, go ahead.
There's one thing I think we need to keep in mind, if y'all please. They have the right on the appropriation side to voice the thing, but they do not on the revenue side.
Right.
And that's why when we had the conversation this evening, that I take such offense to holding revenues. Revenues should pass through to you as a school board. You decide, superintendent decides how to allocate and develop that plan. You as a board approve it or don't approve it, make whatever changes you want to. Then it goes to them for their vote on appropriation. That's your decision. That's not theirs. And that's why I am very passionate about that. And y'all may think that's a technicality, but it's really not. It's about control. And I think the roles that each entity, and like I said to them, we are two separate legal entities, and we are. Even though we're a component unit of their audit, we have our own tax ID number. We are separate and apart from the county. We are two separate legal entities. Okay? And I just think that's important to remember as we deal with them. I know everybody's got to be on the get together, but there could be differences that are going to arise. And again, revenues is the one that they should never touch. That's a superintendent and a school board decision alone. That is not county government.
So what you're saying is when they held our pass-throughs, that shouldn't be allowed.
No, they should have come to you, asked for your input. That didn't happen. School board, instead it was kind of,
we're going to do it.
Forced down our.
Yeah.
Basically, the state's sending us the money. It has to pass through them.
Yeah, pass through them.
But, for them to actually hold our money, that was intended for us by the state of Virginia.
I think we were very kind when it times to, when they suggested that we have to, they have to defer, we agree to put those, aside. That was, kind thing to do at that time because everybody was dealing with the COVID. What we did, that intention that they were going to not give it back or,
Not ever give it. Yeah.
I voted no to that. I'm just going to put that on record.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Krantz,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
fighting for us and defending us. Next item is new
Oh, Ms. Karan,
business.
before we move on.
Oh, sorry.
From unfinished business, on the topic of not the remote meeting, but public input. We're kind of operating at a point now where people have to come in to speak to us. And they can either write us an
They can
email
write
or
it
they can
too,
write
yeah.
the thing and it gets put into the public record. And now that we've been doing that for a few months, I feel like it doesn't feel quite the same to me, as to have somebody actually come and speak to us. And I'm just wondering as a question, if it's feasible from a technology point of view to allow people, like if we are meeting in person, is it feasible to have, a computer set up where people can sign up ahead of time to basically Zoom and talk to us like via the screen? Because I know other boards are doing that in the area. And I'm just wondering if that's something that if we can do it, and B, if we want to revisit that now that we've had a few months of doing it this way.
I know the public has the option if they feel comfortable to come in person.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of people don't,
They're
right?
not feeling
So-
comfortable. Can we see them on the screen? Is
Yeah,
that what
could
you're
they, I mean,
saying?
could we just do it the same way with the half-hour limit and all that stuff, but just
I
do
don't know
it
how
via?
how the technology works. And
Or maybe the first question I
but
should
we
ask
can
is
do
if
it what we
the
can.
board is interested in doing.
It's an agenda item. I feel like this needs to be something that you give the staff the opportunity to look into and research, and then you as a board, the
Could go
opportunity.
under new business.
It will be new business or it will come to, If
thank
everybody
you.
is thinking the same, if we have a consensus, if you want to find out, I see him nodding.
I'm okay with that.
All right, we'll be
That's
on
great,
the
thank you.
agenda. We'll figure out if we can do it or not. I'll make sure I put a note. Next one is our, well, now it is the new business, all right? So this is the new business. Any other new business? Then I am moving to announcements and information. Any announcements and informations, board members?
Well, I would just like to announce the collaboration between the Dialogue on Race and MCPS with the Zoom meeting that we had. It was absolutely wonderful.
That was so good.
Student, teachers, parents. It was great. Administrators. The level of participation, I think we had 230 some
Yeah.
folks that participated. Had, I think, 150, maybe more that registered for it. But it was just absolutely wonderful hearing the voices, hearing the stories. And what Mrs. Diggs brought to the table was absolutely right on target. It was just great. Now, all the other committees on Dialogue on Race are like, okay, thanks, Marvin. You know,
I told
how are we
her
gonna,
she is
you know,
rocking
keep
and
those
rolling.
bars going? But the participation and the conversation and the feedback that we have received from that has been absolutely great. Folks urging us to put this out as to the rest of the state as to, this is how you do this. This is how you have these conversations. This is how you get them started. So it was just great, and just can't say enough about the cooperation that went on with that collaboration.
I totally agree. Any other announcements and information? Then I am moving our upcoming school board meetings. We will have a legislative meeting on November 17 at 9 a.m. via Zoom. You know, that's in lieu of our legislative breakfast that we can't do. So the COVID way of take the legislator to school month, we SBAs, that's what we're trying to do. And then, of course, November 17, we have the anti-bias and racism, our second part of our training. And December 1st is our regular meeting. December 15 will be the virtual meeting with the VSBA. And I believe that will be at 6 o'clock also. Any questions regarding the
I'm sorry, Ms.
agenda?
Karan, when was the legislative meeting? Because that's not on.
That is November
that's not on
17.
here.
That's our, the day of our second
Oh,
meeting of November.
Okay, the day of our anti-bias.
But it is in the
okay,
morning.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have the time. What time is that?
I think it's not on the public content, but it's in my cheat sheet. It's
Oh, okay.
9
All
a.m.
right, okay.
None?
We nailed it down this morning. Yeah.
What did you say?
Oh, we finalized the time this morning.
Okay. Okay.
We'll invite all the legislators that will come and join us on Zoom. and
On Zoom, yeah.
Tell them about us and things that we need from
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, that's the way to do under the circumstances anyway. All right, and then I think if there's nothing else, I will enter the closed session. Next order of business is closed session. May I have motion to go into closed session to discuss one financial matter and one personnel matter as authorized by section 2.2-3711 of Code of Virginia.
So moved.
Are we gonna do roll call here also, Miss?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Chewbacca?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham? Yes. Ms. Cass? Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Karan? Yes. Thank you.
Now we're in closed session.
Bye, guys. See ya.
They have to leave.